Chapter 84. The third chapter will be released before 12 o'clock. Please subscribe. When he returned to Yonghua Villa, Li Tianlan was surprised to find that there were police cars and policemen everywhere near the 9th building. The 7th building nearby had been cordoned off. Many plainclothes policemen and policemen hurried in and out with solemn faces. It seemed that there was a murder case. In addition to the police, some moving companies' vehicles were also concentrated nearby. They were loaded with furniture and drove out of the villa area. Several villa area security guards were patrolling nearby. They were neatly dressed, but they all looked helpless and at a loss. Li Tianlan didn't intend to join in the fun, nor was he in the mood. He just vaguely heard people's discussion. The owner of the 7th building who was killed was a well-known local entrepreneur and seemed to have a close relationship with some people in the district. Now the family of 4 and 5 bodyguards all died tragically at home. It seemed that they had offended some big shots. There were not many onlookers around, but those who dared to come were basically not afraid of trouble. Some people excitedly discussed the cause of death of the deceased, such as burglary, intentional murder, and so on. The scenes of gratitude and hatred were vividly described by their mouths, as if everyone had personally experienced the knife and sword shadows in the 7th building. With a head full of white hair, Li Tianlan walked through the crowd expressionlessly and opened the door of Villa No. 9. He had no interest in understanding what was going on outside, but he guessed that what was going on outside had something to do with him. The cause of death of the owner of the 7th building was unknown, so Li Tianlan would not make wild guesses. But he felt that the craze of moving in the villa area had something to do with him. The night before yesterday, Tan Qinghua led a team to rush into Yonghua Villa. The appearance of Dongqing Wudi did not cause too much conflict, but it must have aroused the uneasiness of the nearby owners. The sensitivity of the 7th building was the catalyst. It was probably because of this that many owners felt that Yonghua Villa had become a place of trouble. It was a good choice to temporarily avoid it. A place of trouble and a person of trouble. Li Tianlan opened the door of the villa and laughed at himself. The villa was clean and tidy, and everything was neatly arranged. Li Tianlan quietly went upstairs and walked into the bedroom. The bedroom was filled with the rich and natural fragrance of Qin Wei Bai. There seemed to be a trace of ambiguity in the air. The bed had been changed with new sheets and the quilt was neatly laid on the bed, looking cozy and warm. Li Tianlan didn't take off his clothes. He lay quietly on the bed, and his emotions were so calm that he was almost numb. He closed his eyes and silently felt his body. The extremely powerful force in his body seemed to be still expanding, as if there was no end. But he knew very well that it was because his vitality was still passing away. He was still alive mainly because tribulation had pressed back his sword along with part of his vitality. But vitality was overdrawn. Although it still existed in his body, it was more like a temporary storage. It was passing away every minute and second. Maybe it wouldn't be long before he became a lifeless corpse. Li Tianlan gritted his teeth, but his expression was as cold as a glacier. He sat up from the bed, calmed himself down, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. No matter whether the road ahead was a dead end or a smooth road, he would not give up or despair. If the end of his fate was really doomed, he just wanted to do something in the limited time he had left. He had to do something. At the very least, he could not wait for death in silence. In the bedroom filled with a faint fragrance, Li Tianlan closed his eyes and completely emptied his mind. Time passed bit by bit, and his breathing became slower and steadier. He seemed to have become a statue. The sun was setting. The sun was setting. The moon was high in the sky. When the moonlight covered the whole villa area, a sweet doorbell suddenly rang, interrupting Li Tianlan's deep meditation. Li Tianlan opened his eyes in a trance, took a deep breath, withdrew from the state of meditation, and slowly went downstairs. He felt the condition of his body and subconsciously felt a little disappointed. An afternoon of meditation did not improve his body at all. Even his vitality was still passing away, but at a slightly slower speed. The only thing that comforted him was that the feeling of emptiness in his body seemed to be slightly better. It was not obvious, but it was real. Thinking of the bottle of youth he once drank, Li Tianlan fell silent. It should be the effect of the bottle of youth that was working. It was said that youth also contained a large amount of vitality. However, the so-called large amount of vitality was only a drop in the bucket compared to his consumption. At most, it could let him live for a few more days. He turned on the monitor outside the door. On the small screen stood a vague figure in the dark. The figure was plump and sexy, but at this time the charming face was full of anxiety. The enchantress from the Wang family of Beihai. Li Tianlan was stunned for a moment, and then his heart suddenly sank. What was she doing here? Li Tianlan threw away the monitor in his hand, strode to the door, and opened the door of the villa. Outside the villa, the enchantress was still raising her hand to press the doorbell. Seeing Li Tianlan come out, the core expert of the Wang family of Beihai breathed a sigh of relief and asked directly, "Is Yue Tong here?" Li Tianlan's heart instantly sank to the bottom. It was really because of Wang Yuetong. No. He shook his head and said, "What's wrong with Yuetong?" Although she vaguely knew the answer before coming, seeing Li Tianlan shake his head, the enchantress could not help but become more anxious. She took a deep breath, forced herself to calm down, and said, "She is missing. Someone attacked the garden party at noon today. Xianxia was seriously injured, and Yuetong was also missing." His Majesty immediately went out to chase them, but he did not catch them. Li Tianlan's palms suddenly tightened, and his 5 fingers unconsciously penetrated the metal door of the villa. Who did it? Gu Xingyun? Attacking the garden party, seriously injuring Wang Xingxiao, and taking Wang Yuetong away. Now Wang Xingxiao was very likely to enter the thunder-shocking realm. How terrifying was the invincible realm expert with wind and thunder veins. No one could imagine it without facing it personally. In the case that Wang Tianzong rushed over as soon as possible, the other party could seriously injure Wang Xingxiao and take Wang Yuetong away. Moreover, Wang Tianzong did not even catch up with them afterward. Such a person was definitely a real invincible realm expert, and even among the invincible realm experts, he was the kind of person who rarely had an opponent. Among the 4 invincible realm experts in the vast Zhongzhou state, Gu Qianchuan, the first elder of Kunlun City, who had never been on the holy list, definitely did not have such ability. The other 3 people were on the divine list. Excluding Wang Tianzong, there were only the hidden god of Zhongzhou state, Sidu Cangyue, and the war god of Zhongzhou state, Gu Xingyun. Sidu Cangyue ranked 15th and last on the divine list. There was still a gap between her strength and Wang Tianzong's. Even if she attacked first, it was impossible for Wang Tianzong not to catch up with her. In this way, the most suspicious target was only the war god of Zhongzhou state. Gu Xingyun, the governor of Kunlun City, ranked 4th on the world divine list. In Zhongzhou state, his strength was the closest to Wang Tianzong's. In the case of taking the initiative, he was the only one who could barely keep Wang Tianzong from catching up. As for other overseas invincible realm experts, they might also be able to do this. But such people were either the patron saints of other superpowers or the masters of a superpower. Not to mention whether they dared to come to Huading at the risk of dying in Zhongzhou state after being discovered. Even if they did come, what was the point of taking Wang Yuetong away? At the very least, if the other party could seriously injure Wang Xingxiao, taking Wang Xingxiao away would be much more meaningful than taking Wang Yuetong away. It's not Gu Xingyun. The enchantress's face was extremely gloomy. Negative emotions such as uneasiness and irritation appeared on her face, and she could not suppress them at all. His Majesty has spoken to the president on the phone. When the incident happened, Gu Xingyun was holding an internal meeting of the special warfare system in the Hidden Dragon Sea. He was not in Huading at all. For a moment, Li Tianlan's heart was in a mess. The pretty face with tears on it suddenly became extremely clear in his mind. Her pleading and fear, her sadness and despair. "What do you need me to do?" Li Tianlan asked without hesitation. He did not know what would happen to him in the future, nor did he know what would happen to Wang Yuetong. But if Wang Yuetong was really missing and never heard from again, he would not be able to rest in peace even if he died. Don't owe each other anything? The girl who was willing to die with him. The girl who was noble but was willing to put down everything to beg him. How could they not owe each other anything? The enchantress took a deep look at Li Tianlan. From his eyes, she saw worry, anger, uneasiness, and pity. These were the most real emotions. At this moment, all of them appeared in Li Tianlan's eyes. No need. The enchantress felt a little complicated. She shook her head and said, "His Majesty has closed the city as soon as possible. The army, the armed police, the special warfare system, and even the ordinary traffic police have all been on duty and launched a carpet search. The other party must not have left Huading. We will find her." The core expert of the Wang family of Beihai, who threatened to fight with Li Tianlan in the afternoon, looked at Li Tianlan again and said calmly, "Have a good rest. From my point of view, I still hope you can recover as soon as possible." She nodded, said goodbye, and turned to leave in a hurry. Li Tianlan stood at the door for a long time before he turned and walked into the villa. As the door closed, the inside of the villa was dark. Li Tianlan was too lazy to turn on the light. He sat quietly on the sofa. After meditation, his originally concentrated will became chaotic for no reason, making him restless. Beep, beep, beep. In the darkness, a subtle but extremely harsh sound rang. The wristwatch on Li Tianlan's wrist vibrated for the first time since he entered the Sky Academy. The blue signal light flashed on the wristwatch. Li Tianlan's eyes suddenly froze. There were 3 color signal lights on the wristwatch of the Sky Academy: red, blue, and yellow. Yellow represented temporary tasks. Every student could choose to accept or not to accept them. Blue represented urgent tasks. Participation was also voluntary. But once the task was completed, a lot of credits would usually be rewarded. Red represented combat tasks. The academy had no choice. When receiving a task, all the students must be dispatched. This kind of task was basically an emergency. It was first sent to the wristwatch of the academy, and then it would be updated in the mission system of the Sky Academy. Li Tianlan raised his wristwatch and looked at it. The screen of the wristwatch was completely lit up, and the blue signal light representing urgent tasks was still flashing. At 1:23 p.m. today, Wang Yuetong, an outstanding student of the Sky Academy, disappeared near Lanshan National Park. On the screen, line after line of words appeared. There were about 200 or 300 words, which introduced the disappearance of Wang Yuetong in more detail. This was a task issued by the headmaster of the Sky Academy, Zhuang Huayang, who asked every student to try his best to participate in this task. Those who provided clues would be rewarded with 50 credits, and those who found Wang Yuetong would be rewarded with 200 credits. The task specifically noted that this task was 4-star because it was possible to encounter combatants of foreign hostile forces. In the Sky Academy, there was also a credit reward for completing 5 tasks above 4-star in a row. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the screen of the wristwatch. There was no doubt that Wang Tianzong had begun to use the power of the Southeast Group to influence the Sky Academy after failing to find Wang Yuetong in the afternoon. Gu Xingyun was in Yuzhou. So it was very likely that the one who attacked Wang Yuetong this time was the most unlikely foreign force. Because foreign forces were involved, the urgent task issued by the Sky Academy was acceptable. Moreover, it was to find someone, not to fight. So the difficulty of a 4-star task was not outrageous. Li Tianlan silently read the task signed by Zhuang Huayang until the phone rang. Li Baitian's voice came from the phone. "Tianlan, have you come back from Zhongyuan province? Have you read the task issued by the academy? The headmaster doesn't allow me and Brother Awesome to participate. Do you want to have a try?" Li Tianlan said, "Yes, I have this plan. By the way, ask Xianxia if he knows where the largest intelligence organization in Huading is. How can I contact him?" "You don't have to ask him." Li Baitian smiled bitterly. "I know the most powerful intelligence organization in Huading, but you can't count on it. It's the power of the Lu family in Huading. It has been developing in Huading for decades and is deeply rooted. Its code name is the Curtain. It's the Lu family where Lu Xiuwei is. I guess they have already received the news of Wang Yuetong's disappearance. But they are just pretending and won't really take it seriously. Behind the curtain, the most powerful one is probably the Huading branch of Jiangnan society. You don't have to contact this one. They are originally a part of the Wang family of Beihai, so they will definitely make great efforts to trace it. It is said that Lu Shuanghua, the person in charge of Jiangnan society, has already taken elites from Jiangnan to Huading. As for some other intelligence organizations, it's useless to find them. Li Tianlan suddenly interrupted Li Beidian and said flatly, I have to contact them. Li Beidian was silent for a moment and said, then I will send you the contact information of other intelligence organizations. Before Li Tianlan could speak, a slight voice that almost everyone would subconsciously ignore suddenly sounded upstairs. In an instant, Li Tianlan suddenly stood up, and the human emperor in his sleeve flew out in the most primitive form. The metal tube of more than 10 centimeters stretched in the air and directly turned into a long spear of more than 2 meters. The space in the villa was violently distorted, and lightning suddenly appeared. On the phone, all the sounds of Li Beidian became meaningless syllables in the distorted air. The silver spear shot straight to the 3rd floor. Li Tianlan followed the spear and sprinted in the direction behind the silver spear. The lightning flashed for a moment and then went out in an instant. In the villa without lights on, 9 men in black who had sneaked up to the 3rd floor were wondering why Li Tianlan was not in the bedroom. Just as they continued to explore downstairs, the silver spear and the lightning flashed at the same time. Thundershocking. The moment the silver spear flashed, the black-clothed man at the front only had time to scream in horror. Before his voice died away, the silver spear had directly smashed his chest. Li Tianlan, who was irritated and in a bad state, attacked with all his strength. Not only the black-clothed man at the front, but also the 2 elites behind him were pierced by this spear. The silver spear of more than 2 meters rushed over with a violent whistling sound. In the whistling sound, it was an almost irresistible force. Bang! The 3 people who were pierced by the long spear did not even have the most basic struggle. Under the huge penetrating force, they directly turned into flesh and blood flying all over the sky, and died without a whole body. The silver spear continued to rush and was nailed into the wall. Only a few dozen centimeters of the spear body was left outside, shaking violently and causing a large number of cracks in the wall. The 9 people had just met, and a team led by an expert in the fire-flaming realm was completely annihilated. Li Tianlan's body had already appeared in front of the other 2 teams. This was the first time he killed people in Huading. He breathed softly. In the darkness, no one could see that his eyes had become blood red. The fierceness and madness that had been accumulated in his heart for many years seemed to have found the most suitable breakthrough point, and he could not wait to vent it. There seemed to be a huge will in his heart that kept roaring, "Kill them all! Kill them all!" At this moment, looking at the scattered blood in front of him, Li Tianlan did not feel anger or killing intent in his heart, only a kind of strange comfort that even he himself felt. Was he also bloodthirsty by nature? Who asked you to come? Li Tianlan asked softly, and his eyes were as demonic as the deepest darkness, as if they could devour everything. The 6 people in the remaining 2 teams were trembling violently, and their eyes were full of horror. The news they got was that they came here to kill a nonentity in the chi-controlling realm, and the intelligence said that the other party was likely to have the strength of the fire-flaming realm. Before the action, no one took the target they were about to kill in mind. So what if he had the strength of the fire-flaming realm? 3 fire-flaming realm experts led the team, and 6 ice-condensing realm experts assisted on the side. Killing a nonentity in the chi-controlling realm was like shooting a mosquito with an anti-aircraft gun. They came full of confidence, but hit an iron plate of the thunder-shocking realm. The chi-controlling realm? This was obviously the F*King thunder-shocking realm. The 6 people subconsciously stood together, looking terrified. For a moment, they even forgot to curse the person who gave them the news. The Zhong family? Li Tianlan looked at them and asked patiently, his tone becoming softer and softer. The Tan family? Still no one spoke. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows slightly, stretched out his hand, and suddenly pulled in the air. The dazzling lightning flashed away. In the twisted air, a scream suddenly sounded and disappeared. In an instant, among the 6 people, one of the teams had completely disappeared, and there was not even a trace of blood, only a pile of ashes. Li Tianlan looked at the other team and chuckled, "Who the hell is it?" It's the task given by Mr. Lu. The three people in the last team completely broke down. The team leader trembled and suddenly knelt on the ground. Spare me, please spare me. I can take you to the headquarters of the curtain, and I can help you find Mr. Lu. Spare me. Mr. Lu. The curtain. The light in Li Tianlan's eyes flashed away. In the past few days, the Tan family and the Zhong family had become the two wealthy families that attracted his attention the most. Hearing the name Mr. Lu, he even forgot who it was for a while. But once the curtain and the Lu family were combined, plus Li Baitian's phone call just now, Li Tianlan immediately knew the mastermind behind the scenes. The Lu family of Huading. Revenge at this time? It was a good time. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes with a cold expression. Where is the Lu family? Li Tianlan looked at the three people who knelt in front of him and said calmly. I can take you there. The team leader of the fire-flaming realm raised his head, looking expectant. No need. Li Tianlan raised his hand again. In the other party's frightened and desperate eyes, there was a flash of lightning. 9 people, 3 teams, all wiped out. Li Tianlan suddenly thought of a sentence. As he muttered to himself, this sentence also drifted farther and farther in the dark villa, with extreme killing intent. None of my enemies survived. Thanks to the wind and snow. Chapter 85. This chapter is almost 7,000 words. This chapter is yesterday. There are 2 more chapters today. Please subscribe. As an important part of Kunlun City and even the entire Special Warfare Group, the Lu family might not be the most powerful in Huading, but it had the longest history. Especially after Huading was captured by the Prince Group, several wealthy families in Huading shifted their business focus and moved their headquarters. After leaving only a branch in Huading, the Lu family became one of the few local wealthy families that had the deepest roots in Huading. The Lu family had been developing in Huading since it appeared. When the city was in the hands of the Wang family of Beihai, the Lu family was a wealthy family. When it fell into the hands of the Prince Group and formed the current situation of independent rule, the Lu family was still a wealthy family. The children of the Lu family had diversified development and had been involved in various fields for many years. They were not the top wealthy family in Zhongzhou State, but one of the most stable families. Even after Lu Tianqing, the most outstanding figure of the Lu family in recent decades, stepped into the invincible realm, Lu Tianqing, who stood at the peak of power in Zhongzhou State, did not help the family with great fanfare. Instead, he let the Lu family develop slowly with his power. At Lu Tianqing's peak, the Lu family had also entered the ranks of the top wealthy families in Zhongzhou State. If he had not been killed in a fair duel, the Lu family would have had the hope of becoming a top wealthy family. It was undoubtedly a pity, but also a blessing. Although the Lu family's stable and calm style hindered their development to a certain extent, it also saved the whole family. Situ Zhongyue and Lu Tianqing fought on the top of Taibai, a new invincible realm assassin against a veteran invincible realm expert. Maybe some people foresaw that Lu Tianqing would lose, but absolutely no one thought that Lu Tianqing would die. Lu Tianqing's death completely established the reputation of Sai City, and at the same time, directly pushed his family to the edge of the cliff. When the bad news came, the whole Lu family did not cry or make a fuss. Instead, they made a lot of compromises at once. Lu Tianqing's younger brother, Lu Tianjing, was the mayor of Huading at the time. Judging from the situation at that time, he was very likely to go one step further. Even if he did not reach the top in Huading, he was very sure that he could enter Yuzhou and the cabinet. As long as he took this step and Lu Tianqing did not die, the Lu family would become one of the top wealthy families in Zhongzhou State. At that time, Lu Tianjing had a good reputation. In fact, even if Lu Tianqing died, there was still a possibility for him to succeed. But Lu Tianjing compromised in silence, gave up the opportunity to enter the cabinet, and gave the position to the academics intentionally or unintentionally. Soon after, Lu Tianjing retired completely. Just when everyone thought that the Lu family was about to disappear, Kunlun City made a gesture to protect the Lu family, and the academics also gave limited support. After that difficult time, the Lu family began to develop their well-established intelligence organization. Over the years, the intelligence department of the curtain had been going deeper and deeper into Huading. Today, it had formed the largest intelligence network in Huading. Among the local wealthy families in Huading, the Lu family was far behind the Zhang family in terms of connections, prestige, and influence. In terms of overall strength and development prospects, the Lu family was no match for the Tan family. However, in the field of intelligence, even if the Zhang family and the Tan family combined, they would not be able to match up to the Lu family. In recent years, although the Lu family had fallen from the first tier to the second tier, its foundation in Huading had become more and more stable. The influence of Lu Tianqing's death on the Lu family had almost completely disappeared. 5 years ago, the Lu family and the Tan family were connected by marriage. 3 years ago, Lu Xiuqing, the son of Lu Tianjing, the old master of the Lu family, who was only 42 years old, successfully entered the municipal government from the position of the mayor of Yunjian district and served as the third deputy mayor of Huading. The younger generation of the Lu family, Lu Dongchao and Lu Dongyu, also began to make their mark in the Sky Academy. The foundation of the curtain was getting deeper and deeper. At the beginning of this year, Lu Xiuwei, who had taught at the Sky Academy for 3 years, finally stepped into the teaching office and became one of the deputy directors of the teaching office. At the beginning of this year, there was a rumor that Zhou Shiru, the executive deputy mayor of Huading and a leading figure of the academics, was likely to be transferred to a province in the northwest of Zhongzhou state as the governor in preparation for the midterm change in 2 years. Once this rumor became a reality, Lu Xiuqing was likely to take over Zhou Shiru's position. The whole Lu family seemed to be thriving. Such a Lu family no longer pinned all its hopes on one person, and its vitality was destined to be more tenacious. Lu Tianjing, who was already old, even looked forward to the day when the Lu family returned to the first-tier wealthy families every day. But as a result, the entrance maneuver of the Sky Academy, which no one cared about, completely disrupted the deployment of the Lu family. Lu Xiuwei was killed. Lu Dongchao was killed. In the 10 years after Lu Tianqing's death, the Lu family had never suffered such a heavy loss. Such a result made Lu Tianjing, who had been dreaming almost every day, almost go crazy. He had to take revenge. How could he not take revenge? But as the Sky Academy went on holiday, a series of events made Lu Tianjing's heart heavier and heavier. Li Tianlan disabled Zhong Xiaofeng. Ning Qianxing killed Tan Shilai. Qin Weibai and Zhuang Huayang protected him. It was said that Dong Qingwudi also appeared in Yonghua Villa that night. Lu Tianjing was steady. Just listening to these names, he could feel a heavy pressure. He was not afraid, but he still hesitated about whether to take revenge now. Until today, after receiving a phone call, Lu Tianjing, who had not made up his mind, finally took action. 3 experts in the fire-flaming realm and 6 in the ice-condensing realm. This was definitely a big assassination. Lu Tianjing had no choice. He had sent people out. At this moment, he could only wait quietly for the good news. Today was the Lu family's family banquet. In the independent small manor of the Lu family, almost all the members of the family were present. Men and women sat at the table in the spacious dining room. In front of them was a sumptuous dinner, which looked very grand. But the atmosphere in the dining room was extremely depressing. The Lu family had been in a difficult situation for many years, which also made them develop a good habit of unity. At the family banquet at the beginning of every month, without 2 important figures, Lu Dongchao and Lu Xiuwei, everyone felt extremely depressed and uncomfortable. "Uncle, why don't we eat first? We don't have to wait for them to come back." "Don't worry, the candidates for this action were personally selected by me. They are neat and cooperate well. They are all elites and won't fail." At the table, Lu Shiyuan, the eldest son of Lu Tianqing, looked at the large table of dishes in front of him, moved his mouth, and said in a low voice. He was the only expert in the thunder-shocking realm in the Lu family, and his strength could be said to be the true inheritance of Lu Tianqing. Although he had not reached the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, he was only a step away. With such strength, he could be ranked among the absolute experts in the whole Huading. Because of this, the Curtain Intelligence Organization that he personally took care of for many years had developed smoothly. "I'm not hungry," Wait a little longer. Lu Tianjing waved his hand and said in a low voice. Looking at the rich food on the table, the old man, who had been low-key and steady all his life, felt more and more uneasy. He didn't know where this uneasiness came from. According to the intelligence, Li Tianlan's realm was indeed in the qi-controlling realm, and today he seemed to be seriously injured in front of the Sky Academy and his hair turned white in an instant. In this state, Li Tianlan was almost vulnerable. The force they sent to assassinate him had almost no possibility of failure. But Lu Tianjing always felt uncomfortable in his heart, and as time went by, this feeling became more and more obvious. Maybe it was because he had never taken risks in his life, so he was worried about gains and losses? Lu Tianjing laughed at himself in his heart. He shook his head and said again, "Xun, call them again and confirm the progress of the action." Lu Shuyuan nodded, took out his mobile phone and began to dial. Lu Tianjing waited silently and didn't say a word. Soon, Lu Shuyuan put down the phone and shook his head, saying, "I can't get in touch." Lu Tianjing's heart sank and the atmosphere in the dining room became more and more oppressive. "Dad, maybe our people are too cautious. Maybe they turned off or muted their phones just in case." Next to Lu Tianjing, a gentle and elegant middle-aged man said. His voice was deep and steady, with an indescribable appeal. Lu Tianjing felt a little relieved. He glanced at his son and nodded slightly. After the death of Lu Xiuwei and Lu Dongchao, his son, who served in the municipal government and might become a member of the Standing Committee of Huading in the near future, became the biggest hope of the Lu family. The big shot on the phone today had made it clear that if tonight's matter was successful, he was willing to help Lu Xiuqing fight for the position of deputy secretary, not to mention the Standing Committee of Huading municipal government. "Grandpa, don't worry. I know Li Tianlan's strength. He can't cope with our assassination team. He can't turn the tables no matter how capable he is when 3 fire-flaming realm experts attack together. Tonight he will definitely avenge my brother and uncle." Lu Dongyu sat in front of the table, her charming and sexy body straight. Her eyes were cold and her tone was bitter. "That's right. When they bring that little bastard back, pull out his tendons and peel off his skin if he's alive. If he's dead, grind his bones and scatter his ashes." After Lu Dongyu, another middle-aged man with a gloomy face said viciously. He was Lu Tianjing's youngest son, Lu Xiuhe, who currently controlled all the business forces of the Lu family. In fact, it was just a logistics company. In terms of business, the Lu family had a short start and poor foundation, which had always been their shortcoming. In addition, after Lu Tianjing's death, many industries were thrown out as bargaining chips for self-protection. Now the Lu family had just recovered. The so-called logistics company was only 2 or 3 billion, which didn't match the status of a wealthy family at all. Lu Xiuhe had a bad temper. He was a playboy when he was young and couldn't be of great use. Letting him control the logistics company was a good use of his talents. Lu Tianjing twitched the corner of his mouth. He looked at the quiet and calm Lu Shuyuan beside him and continued, "Call another one." Lu Shuyuan nodded slightly and took out his mobile phone to dial again. The moment the phone was connected, a ringtone rang outside the villa. The living room was not far from the door. It was quiet at this time, so the ringtone outside the door was suddenly very clear. "He's back. I'll open the door." An old butler who had been with Lu Tianjing for many years stood up with a laugh. Since he was back, it meant that the little bastard named Li Tianlan was dead. Although the old butler was still uncomfortable, he finally vented his anger. And it seemed that it was time to fulfill the benefits that the big shot promised the master today. The butler opened the door with a smile on his face and said casually, "Is the little bastard dead? Did you bring the body back?" The master's... The old butler's voice suddenly stopped. His pupils contracted in an instant, and he stared at the door. A young figure stood in front of him, with a gloomy expression and a strange look in his eyes. He had white hair. The old butler felt cold all over. Li Tianlan stood quietly outside the door and said in a cold tone, "The little bastard is not dead, but the old bastard is." The human emperor slipped into his hand. The metal cylinder of more than 10 centimeters was exquisite and cold. The body of the gun was not extended, but the spearhead was stretched out. At this moment, the human emperor was small and dainty, like a slightly long dagger. Li Tianlan directly reached out and stabbed the butler in the abdomen. The blade pierced into the flesh. Li Tianlan's eyes became more and more strange. The butler opened his mouth in horror and stared at Li Tianlan, even forgetting to fight back. Li Tianlan's expression was calm and indifferent. He pulled out the spear and stabbed it in again. A large amount of blood gushed out of the butler's abdomen, and the light in the butler's eyes quickly dimmed. Li Tianlan kicked him into the living room. The bloody corpse flew into the air and fell hard to the ground, blood gushing out. It was quiet in the dining room. Li Tianlan walked into the villa expressionlessly and closed the door. Looking at the different faces of the Lu family in the dining room, he narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "There are a lot of people here. Is there anyone else who hasn't come?" No one spoke and no one moved. All the people of the Lu family seemed to be caught off guard and were all confused. Li Tianlan walked to the dining table unhurriedly, holding a mobile phone in his hand, and continued to ask, "Who called just now?" His hair was gray without any luster, and his clothes were neat, but his face was pale without any blood. Everyone could see that he was weak. But at this moment, the seemingly weak Li Tianlan's every move brought a sense of extreme danger. He glanced around casually, and no one dared to look at him at the whole table. Lu Tianjing took a deep breath and braced himself to look at Li Tianlan. "Are you Li Tianlan? Don't talk nonsense." Li Tianlan calmly held up the mobile phone and said, "I'm just asking who called just now. What do you think? Who do you think you are? You killed my cousin and my uncle. Li Tianlan, do you really think you are invincible in the world? Why don't you take a piss and look in the mirror? Look at you now, you look like neither a human nor a ghost. It's disgusting. Get out of here. The Lu family is not a place for you to behave atrociously." A young woman suddenly stood up, stared at Li Tianlan, and said in a vicious tone. Li Tianlan chuckled. In the next second, the silver spear, which was more than 2 meters long, suddenly stretched out from his hand. The spear style was fierce and crazy. As everyone's pupils suddenly contracted, Li Tianlan stabbed the young woman's heart with the spear. Bang! In the dull sound, everyone's heart trembled fiercely. A big hole suddenly appeared in the young woman's chest, from the front to the back, dripping with blood. "Whose daughter is this?" Li Tianlan held the spear with one hand and asked casually as he stabbed. There was a second of silence in the restaurant. A heart-wrenching scream suddenly rang out, "You lunatic!" Beside the young woman, a lady covered with jewels stood up and pounced on Li Tianlan as if she were crazy. Li Tianlan swung the spear casually. The lady's head flew into the sky, and blood splattered. "Whose wife is this?" Li Tianlan continued to ask without any fluctuation in his tone. Cold-blooded, straightforward, crazy, overbearing, and killing without batting an eye, this man was a lunatic. This was the only thought in the hearts of everyone in the Lu family. "You!" A neatly dressed middle-aged man stood up. He was not angry or frightened, as if he couldn't believe everything in front of him. He glanced at the bodies of his wife and daughter in a daze and suddenly raised his head. But as soon as he said a word, Li Tianlan's spear had directly pierced through his neck. The 2-meter-long spear went through the middle-aged man's neck and smoothly stabbed into the wine cabinet behind him. The whole wine cabinet was instantly smashed, and wine and blood flowed together. Li Tianlan put away the spear expressionlessly and said again, "Whose son is this?" "Enough." A furious roar suddenly sounded. Lu Shiyuan, the only thundershocking realm expert in the Lu family, finally reacted completely. Subtle but dense lightning formed between his hands, and the lightning was like a knife, fiercely chopping at Li Tianlan's back. The unique skill of the Lu family, 6 directions chop. Li Tianlan turned back in an instant and raised the silver spear. The air was like a silver flash, and the amazing silver spear had already smashed down on Lu Shiyuan's body. There was no unique skill, only power. Pure power. The gorgeous and majestic lightning flashed on the tip of the spear and collided with the lightning in front of Lu Shiyuan. The crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. The lightning tore the air and crackled. The body of the first expert of the Lu family was directly smashed by the spear and flew out. His body hit the wall, smashed the wall behind him, and fell directly into the living room, surrounded by rubble. "Uncle!" Lu Dongyu exclaimed with a pale face and looked at Li Tianlan with eyes full of horror. "Thunder-shocking realm! How could this be possible?" Lu Tianjing's mouth trembled like a convulsion. He looked at Li Tianlan in silence. Li Tianlan, who had smashed Lu Shuyuan away with a spear, had blood flowing from the corners of his mouth. He slowly wiped the blood and said flatly, "Whose son is this?" "Li Tianlan, what do you want? Don't forget that the Lu family used to be a giant family. We once had experts of the invincible realm, and we are the heroes of the whole Zhongzhou state. I am the old mayor of Huading, and here is my son, the current deputy mayor of Huading. How dare you kill us? Do you want to commit treason?" Lu Tianjing said fiercely. "Don't be so serious. The topic of treason is too heavy. Although I don't have any psychological burden, I can't let you put a label on me like you did to my father. What's so great about a giant family? I'm the only descendant of the war god family, but I'm still in dire straits." Li Tianlan chuckled and pointed to his hair. "My hair is white. Don't you see it? Father, putting a label on him. The war god family." Lu Tianjing's face suddenly became as pale as snow. I'm Li Tianlan. Li Kuangtu is my father, and Li Honghe is my grandfather." Li Tianlan's tone was calm. The expressions of all the people of the Lu family who were still alive changed dramatically. It was self-evident how sensitive and secretive this identity was. But the other side said it with a calm face. This was not stupidity. This completely showed that the other side did not plot against them tonight to let them live. What deputy mayor? What old mayor? The dead were just corpses. Do you know what it means for you to do this? Lu Tianjing was in a cold sweat, but he managed to calm down and looked at Li Tianlan. "If you kill us, there will be no place for you in Zhongzhou state. In the future, I don't have a future." Li Tianlan said softly, "I'm like this now. What future do you want to talk to me about? You came to kill me, so you should be prepared to be killed. Isn't this very simple?" Lu Tianjing's heart kept sinking. From the other side's tone, he did not hear the slightest hesitation or uneasiness, only determination and killing intent. "I swear in the name of the ancestors of the Lu family that the Lu family will never trouble you in the future and will keep your secret. How about that?" Lu Tianjing took a deep breath and said in a dry voice, "That's not what I want to hear." Li Tianlan put away the silver spear, walked to Lu Shuyuan's seat and sat up. He casually wiped the blood on his hands, picked up a lobster, and clumsily peeled it and took a bite. He said calmly, "The Lu family now has two choices." "Say it." Lu Tianjing's tone was bitter and hoarse. He could almost guess what the other side was going to say without Li Tianlan saying it. "First, I'll kill your whole family and clean up the scene. As long as I don't leave any evidence, there must be someone outside to protect me. If I'm still alive when the truth comes out, I'll figure out another way. At worst, I'll leave Zhongzhou state. I'm a man who's about to die, and I don't want to talk about fame and future. Anyway, even if that day comes, you won't be able to see it. I'll fight to the death and perish together." Li Tianlan ate the lobster and said casually, "Say the second one." Lu Tianjing's tone was calm and numb. "I'm short of a dog in Huading, an obedient dog. I think the Lu family is very suitable. Although some members of the Lu family have died, there are always survivors. It's up to you whether you're willing to condescend or not." Li Tianlan continued. "Li Tianlan, don't go too far." Before Lu Tianjing finished his words, another member of the Lu family's branch stood up and roared at the table. Li Tianlan waved his hand casually, and a chopstick in his hand flew directly to the man who spoke. The silver chopstick instantly sank into the man's forehead. Li Tianlan, whose eyes didn't change during the whole process, peeled the lobster seriously and said calmly, "If you don't want to condescend, go to hell." A piece of peeled lobster meat was suddenly put on Li Tianlan's plate. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and looked up. Lu Dongyu came to his side at some point. She calmly peeled the lobster in her hand and continued to deliver the lobster meat to him without saying a word. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and smiled gloomily. Lu Dongyu, how dare you, you traitor! One of Lu Dongyu's distant uncles stood up and looked incredulously at Lu Dongyu, who served Li Tianlan. His eyes seemed to be spewing fire. Lu Dongyu did her own thing with a poker face. Dongyu, send him to hell. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and smiled gloomily. Swish! Lu Dongyu waved her hand without hesitation. A dagger shot out of her sleeve and instantly pierced the throat of her so-called uncle. Women are the most sensible, aren't they? Li Tianlan suddenly said in a flat tone. I don't want to die. The Lu family can't die. Lu Dongyu's voice was stiff. Li Tianlan could clearly feel how unwilling and humiliated this woman, who stood in front of him condescendingly when they met for the first time, was. But she still stood there, and even the movement of her hands became more and more gentle. Go and get me some rice. I'm hungry. Li Tianlan pushed the plate in front of him and ordered, You can poison it. If you can't poison me, you will die. Lu Dongyu's face was slightly pale. She turned and left without saying a word. Lu Tianjing looked at his granddaughter with a complicated expression and said nothing. Tell me what you think. Li Tianlan looked at Lu Tianjing and said, I don't want to wait. I'm willing. Lu Tianjing seemed to have aged 20 years in an instant. His tone was vicissitude and sad. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, The Lu family is willing to be your dog. Those who are willing, kneel down. Li Tianlan lit a cigarette and said casually, Silence. 1 second. 10 seconds. Half a minute. Lu Tianjing got up shakily and was the first to kneel on the ground. Then everyone knelt on the ground. Some people burst into tears, and some looked numb. Who could have thought of crushing their knees and spines with pure force in Lu Tianjing's era? Who could have thought of it? Lu Dongyu came over with a bowl of rice. Looking at her grandfather kneeling on the ground, she hesitated and also wanted to kneel. You stand. Li Tianlan took the bowl and chopsticks and said lightly, You did a good job, but I don't trust you. He took a mouthful of rice and continued, How can I trust you? Tell me what you think is important. He paused and continued, for example, Kunlun City. Chapter 86. Li Tianlan was not worried that the Lu family would not cooperate. Both Li Tianlan and Lu Tianjing knew how unreliable the so-called loyalty and power bought with pure violence were. The Lu family's style of doing things had always been calm and steady. They were good at compromise and forbearance. This kind of family undoubtedly lacked a bit of bloodthirstiness and was even looked down upon most of the time. However, it was undeniable that this kind of family had the strongest vitality. Since Lu Tianjing chose to kneel, it showed that he had the confidence to come up with a bargaining chip to make Li Tianlan temporarily trust them, which was what Li Tianlan needed most. If it weren't for the excessive overdraft of his vitality with that sword strike, Li Tianlan might choose to play with the Lu family slowly. He was calm and cautious, taking risks and gambling. It was not impossible, but when there was a safer way, he was not willing to choose the most dangerous one. But with the complete overdraft of his vitality and potential, Li Tianlan changed. In the face of strangers, he became bloodthirsty and cold-blooded, and his mind became more and more crazy. In the face of the Lu family's revenge, he did not hesitate to kill them. Such a fierce move was undoubtedly risky, but Li Tianlan felt that there was nothing wrong with it. It was nothing more than gambling with his life for the lives of the Lu family. If the Lu family were more unyielding, Li Tianlan would not mind killing them all. Because it involved a senior official at the level of deputy governor, the high-level officials of Zhongzhou state were bound to be furious. Layers of pressure would be transmitted to Huading. No matter how clean Li Tianlan did it, the truth would be found out bit by bit. At that time, the academics would never stand up for him because of this matter, and Samsara and Sai City were also out of their reach. Li Tianlan did not know and did not want to know how the Dongqing clan would react. In his current state, it seemed that he had no capital to think about the future. This time he came to the Lu family, his purpose was clear. He would either be a dog or die. Under the deterrence of absolute violence, would the Lu family compromise for the sake of future survival? Or would they die for the sake of past hatred? Looking at Lu Tianjing and others kneeling at the table in silence, Li Tianlan's eyes were calm. The answer seemed to be obvious. This was the best result for both sides, and also the result that Li Tianlan wanted the most. As a mature, wealthy family that had developed for nearly 100 years, the Lu family would give up grudges and loyalty when the whole family was facing death. This was the most realistic, mature, cruel, and most likely result. A life and death struggle? Li Tianlan was determined, but the Lu family did not have the courage. "Tell me, Mr. Lu, how should I trust you?" The living room was filled with the smell of blood. Li Tianlan ate slowly and calmly. As an important part of the Special Warfare Group, the Lu family was also one of the important peripheral forces of Kunlun City. Before Lu Tianqing died, he was an invincible realm expert at his peak. It was impossible for such a family to have no secrets. If the Lu family could come up with a secret that could win his trust for the time being, Li Tianlan's seemingly risky move, but in fact, it was not a big gamble, was the right move. Lu Tianjing suddenly said, "Go to your father's study. There is a mechanism under the third grid on the right side of the bookcase. There are 3 password walls behind the mechanism. The password of the first 2 walls is your grandfather's death date and your father's ID number. The third wall is your brother's and your birthday on the lunar calendar. Go in and take out the things inside." Lu Dongyu, who was serving Li Tianlan, was stunned. Her first reaction was to look at Li Tianlan subconsciously. Li Tianlan waved his hand casually. He had 1 foot over the thunder-shocking realm. With his current strength, at least in the Lu family, he didn't need to be afraid of anything. Lu Dongyu, whose eyes were a little confused, quickly went upstairs. Lu Tunjing knelt where he was, with a painful and miserable expression. "Something very important?" Li Tianlan looked at Lu Tianjing with a faint smile. "It's not as important as the survival of the Lu family." Lu Tianjing's tone was a little numb. Li Tianlan took a deep look at him and said nothing. The old mayor of Huading did have the wisdom to compromise. The Lu family almost surrendered to him as a whole, which was much better than what he had expected before he came here. He had thought that even if the Lu family would compromise, it would only happen after only a few people were left in the family after they died. Who would have thought that Lu Tianjing would be so straightforward? Just a few people from the Lu family's branches died, and the main branch hadn't moved, but the old man directly knelt down. He was steady and calm. Thinking of what Li Baitian said when he told him the address of the Lu family, Li Tianlan smiled. He was really calm, so calm and rational that it chilled people's hearts. Lu Dongyu's charming figure disappeared on the 2nd floor of the villa. Li Tianlan looked thoughtfully in the direction she left. His intuition told him that what Lu Dongyu brought back this time was definitely not trivial. The footsteps upstairs disappeared for less than 3 minutes, and then they sounded again. The sound of stilettos tapping on the steps of the villa was clear and light. Lu Dongyu trotted downstairs with a square metal box about 50 or 60 centimeters in her arms. The box was inconspicuous gray and white. It looked extremely old and inconspicuous. There was no password on it, only a small screen. The screen was dim and obviously not turned on. Lu Dongyu came to the dining room and directly handed the box to Li Tianlan. The corners of Lu Tianjing's mouth twitched, and he felt more and more upset. In the past few minutes, his heart could be said to be suffering. He hoped that Lu Dongyu could escape with the box, but he also hoped that she would come down quickly with the box. Now the result was clear, and there was no point in thinking about it. "Bring your father here. We need his fingerprints and eye mask to open the box," Lu Tianjing ordered in a calm voice. Lu Dongyu did not hesitate this time and opened the box according to his method. There was a small wooden box in the box. Lu Dongyu took out the wooden box, put it in front of Li Tianlan, and stood beside him again. "This is a gift from the Lu family to young Master Li, and it is also the biggest secret of the Lu family." Lu Tianjing looked at the box in front of him in a daze and said in a dry voice. Li Tianlan nodded, opened the box casually, and was suddenly stunned. In his sight, a soft light shone in the box, which made people feel indescribably comfortable. This was a piece of jade about the size of a fist. It had a perfect shape, was crystal clear, and was milky white in color. Several complicated ancient characters were engraved on the surface of the jade, and they were neat and tidy. The light from the jade was gentle and quiet, and it looked holy and solemn. Li Tianlan grabbed it and looked at it casually. He did not know the ancient characters, but he felt that it was something like a seal, like an antique. He frowned slightly, looked at Lu Tianjing and said, "What is written on it?" Lu Tianjing's mouth trembled, and his voice was bleak. "Those are the ancient characters of the Qin dynasty." He looked into Li Tianlan's eyes and said word by word, "Receive the mandate of heaven, and live forever." Whether it was Lu Dongyu or the other kneeling Lu family members, they all changed their expressions and looked up at the same time. "Receive the mandate of heaven, and live forever." Everyone knew what these 8 words meant in the history of Zhongzhou State. Even Li Tianlan, who had lived on the border since childhood, had heard of these words. "He's jade." Li Tianlan pinched the jade in his hand and looked at Lu Tianjing and asked, "This is the imperial jade seal." Lu Tianjing said bitterly, "There is no folk saying that a seal can be carved out of a wall. He's jade and the imperial jade seal are completely different things. The one in young Master Li's hand is the imperial jade seal that has long been lost in history." Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and said calmly, "I'm afraid the Lu family can't get this kind of thing, can they?" "This is..." Lu Tianjing's body trembled slightly, and he gritted his teeth and said, "This should belong to Kunlun City." Gu Qingfeng found the imperial jade seal in a relic, but he didn't have time to bring it back to Kunlun City. Instead, my brother secretly took it back to the Lu family. My brother could enter the invincible realm because of this thing. Gu Qingfeng? Li Tianlan asked with interest. Gu Qingfeng is the superior of the invincible realm in the previous generation of Kunlun City, and also the father of Gu Qianchuan, the first elder of Kunlun City. He was my brother's teacher. Lu Tianjing said more and more fluently. The imperial jade seal had changed owners. In order to survive, there was nothing he couldn't say now. When Gu Qingfeng just got the imperial jade seal, he was ambushed and seriously injured. When he was dying, he was attacked by my brother, and the imperial jade seal fell into the hands of the Lu family. For decades, Kunlun City didn't know about it at all. He attacked his teacher? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows slightly, and his tone had a hint that no one could understand. What teacher? Lu Tianjing's tone was a little ferocious. Gu Qingfeng completely regarded my brother as a servant and a slave at that time. If he casually gave advice to my brother with unique skills, how could my brother barely enter the fire-flaming realm at the age of 35? Late bloomer? It's all bullshit. With my brother's talent, if he met a famous teacher, he would have entered the invincible realm long ago. He's a bullshit teacher. Later, even if my brother entered the thunder-shocking realm, it was Senior Gu Yinshan who secretly helped him. My brother owed him a great debt of gratitude. He asked my brother to kill Gu Qingfeng. How could my brother refuse? Li Tianlan frowned slightly. Lu Dongyu, who always paid attention to Li Tianlan's expression, said softly, Gu Yinshan was Gu Xingyun's uncle, and now he is dead. 20 years ago, Gu Xingyun's bloodline could only be regarded as a branch, and Gu Qianchuan's bloodline was the direct line. But because Gu Qingfeng died early, and Gu Xingyun entered the invincible realm early, the highest power of Kunlun City is now in the hands of Gu Xingyun. But even so, Gu Xingyun is in Yuzhou all the year round, and at the same time, he leaves most of the affairs of Kunlun City to Gu Qianchuan. This may also be a way for him to calm the internal contradictions. There was a dead silence in the restaurant. Everyone in the Lu family was pale, and their eyes were frightened. In the past, only Lu Tianjing and Lu Shuyuan knew the news. Now that it was said, everyone knew what the consequences would be if it was exposed. If Gu Qingfeng had not died, even if Gu Xingyun entered the invincible realm, the leading power of Kunlun City would not have fallen into Gu Xingyun's hands. Once the news was leaked, regardless of what would happen inside Kunlun City, whether it was Gu Xingyun or Gu Qianchuan, they would completely tear the Lu family to pieces in order to kill them or take revenge. This bargaining chip was so heavy. As they handed over the imperial jade seal, It could be said that the fate of all the Lu family members had been completely controlled by Li Tianlun. Li Tianlun held the imperial jade seal and remained silent. Today, I sent someone to kill you because I received an order from Gu Qianchuan. Everyone knows that you disabled Zhong Xiaofeng. Gu Qianchuan wants to use your death to provoke the contradictions between other groups and the Prince Group. In recent years, although the Prince Group and the Special Warfare Group have been very close, the former's dependence on Kunlun City has become less and less. But for the time being, the Special Warfare Group still needs the help of the Prince Group. Once you die, once the Prince Group is under pressure, they will continue to cooperate with Kunlun City. At that time, they can get more benefits. Lu Tianjing simply told everything he knew. Of course, this is just Gu Qianchuan's superficial explanation. As for whether he has other purposes, I don't know. As far as I know, a big shot of the invincible realm outside the country has come to Huading a week ago. Gu Qianchuan's visit to Huading this time seems to be a little strange. What do you want to say? Li Tianlun suddenly said. Lu Tianjing paused and then said flatly, I just have some of my own speculations. I don't have any evidence. Kunlun City, Gu Qianchuan, a big shot of the invincible realm outside the country, the disappearance of Wang Yuetong. Li Tianlun narrowed his eyes and said flatly, a big shot of the invincible realm outside the country? The second master of the Jiang family outside the country, Jiang Qinyan, codenamed Blackhand, ranks 6th on the holy list. Of course, without the murderous weapon, Jiang Qinyan is qualified to use the Legend of Qin. Once he comes to Zhongzhou State with the Legend of Qin, his combat capability will only be more terrifying. Lu Tianjing whispered. The Legend of Qin, the murderous weapon of the Jiang family. This was the name of the third murderous weapon that Li Tianlun heard. When an invincible realm expert held a murderous weapon, his strength would almost double. Li Tianlun had no interest in the Jiang family. He just wondered if Jiang Qinyan had the strength to kidnap Wang Yuetong if he came to Zhongzhou State with the Legend of Qin. Did the Jiang family and the Wang family of Beihai not invade each other? Or were they hostile to each other? Li Tianlun held the jade seal in his hand and suddenly said, do one thing. Let all the curtain take action and thoroughly investigate the whereabouts of Wang Yuetong. His heart twitched and he continued to say, I want to see her alive, and I want to see her dead body. Lu Tianjing silently picked up the phone and gave the order. Then he continued to kneel on the ground without saying a word. Was Lu Tianjing involved in my father's treason? How much do you know? Li Tianlun asked abruptly, playing with the jade seal in his hand and looking at Lu Tianjing, who had put down the phone. I don't know. Lu Tianjing shook his head. My brother had just entered the invincible realm and was seriously injured when he came back. He didn't tell me about it. Li Tianlun glanced at Lu Tianjing and didn't ask further. The treason case, from the beginning to the end, was a series of processes, and the truth was deeply hidden. Even if Lu Tianjing was Lu Tianqing's younger brother, it was normal that he didn't know about it. Tell me about the Imperial Jade Seal. Li Tianlun put the jade seal on the table. Before he could continue, his cell phone suddenly vibrated. Li Tianlun looked at the number, stood up abruptly, and answered without hesitation. On the phone, a clear and nervous voice sounded, a little uneasy and pitiful. Where have you been? Li Tianlun took a deep breath, suppressed his emotions, and said calmly, Where are you? I'm in the 9th building of Yonghua Villa. Chapter 87. 2 chapters were published in a row, and there was another chapter ahead. Li Tianlun said, okay, and hung up the phone in confusion. He glanced at the dining room and looked at Lu Tianjing calmly. Can you handle these dead people? Lu Tianjing's eyes dimmed and he nodded. Very good. Li Tianlun picked up the Imperial Jade Seal on the table. I'm very satisfied with everything you said. From today on, I hope the Lu family can be a good dog. Can you do that? Lu Tianjing lowered his head to hide his eyes and nodded silently. A smile gradually appeared on the corner of Li Tianlun's mouth, and he said coldly, I know you're not convinced, but from now on, as long as I'm alive, the curtain is mine, and the Lu family is also my dog. You can consider betraying me, But you'd better think about the consequences. Consequences? Today, Li Tianlan only killed a few members of the Lu family, which was dispensable. Even if it was exposed, the people behind Li Tianlan could suppress it. But the Lu family gave him the imperial jade seal and even exposed their biggest secret. If the Lu family betrayed him, Li Tianlan didn't even need to do anything. He just needed to tell the story to Kunlun City, and the whole Lu family would die without a burial place. Lu Tianjing smiled bitterly and nodded silently. Li Tianlan turned and left. Lu Tianjing and the others of the Lu family subconsciously wanted to stand up and see him off, but Li Tianlan's cold voice had already sounded. Kneel. Li Tianlan returned to Yonghua Villa almost as fast as he could. It was still quiet in building number 9. Li Tianlan hurriedly opened the door of the villa and strode into the living room. The human emperor had been fully stretched out in his hand. His expression was calm, but his eyes were extremely vigilant. In the dark living room, a tall and slender beautiful figure sat quietly on the sofa. The moment she saw Li Tianlan come in, she stood up straight reflexively and took a step forward. "Senior brother, how are you?" Li Tianlan was confused. Looking at Wang Yuetong, who was intact in front of him, he whispered, "Are you alone?" Wang Yuetong nodded gently and looked at the white-haired Li Tianlan in the dark with complicated eyes. "Aren't you missing?" Li Tianlan pointed to the watch on his wrist and felt a headache. "I went back to the Wang family of Beihai." Wang Yuetong whispered, "But I didn't tell my father." She bent over and picked up her bag from the sofa. She fumbled in her bag and finally pulled out a small, slender box. The box opened. A 5 or 6 centimeter long glassware appeared in front of Li Tianlan. Inside the glassware, the crystal-clear purple liquid shone with an almost dazzling brilliance even in the dark. Wang Yuetong carefully held the glassware in front of her and said softly but firmly, "Senior brother, drink it." "What is this?" Li Tianlan instinctively felt that something was wrong and asked with a frown. Wang Yuetong did not speak. In the darkness, her beautiful eyes blinked slightly, as if they were filled with tears again. Li Tianlan smiled bitterly and nodded. He took the utensil from Wang Yuetong's hand and drank it. He said helplessly, "Thank you." Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan in a daze and said softly, "Dad doesn't want me anymore, and neither does the Wang family of Beihai. Senior brother, do you want me?" She looked at Li Tianlan silently. Her tone was a little happy, but also full of despair. "Even if it's only for one day." Li Tianlan's heart sank and he asked subconsciously, "What do you mean?" Wang Yuetong did not say much. She just whispered again, "Do you want me?" Before Li Tianlan opened his mouth, his body suddenly trembled. The purple liquid entered his abdomen and instantly turned into endless energy. It was an indescribable feeling. The soft energy quickly filled every inch of his skin. The weakness caused by excessive overdraft of vitality disappeared quickly. A familiar yet strange vitality soared in his body, as if it was endless. "This is..." Li Tianlan's voice trembled. For a moment, he could not believe it. "This is the most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai. I stole it." Wang Yuetong wiped away her tears and said in a choked voice, "I don't want you to die." "Maybe you're right. I'm a bitch, but I just don't want you to die." "I'm a bitch, so be it." Sub. Li Tianlan suddenly stepped forward and held Wang Yuetong in his arms. He lowered his head and firmly kissed her little mouth. Wang Yuetong let out 2 muffled screams and looked at Li Tianlan with her eyes wide open. Her body instantly became stiff. After an unknown amount of time, just as Li Tianlan was about to let go of her, Wang Yuetong suddenly reached out and put her arms around his neck. She began to respond fiercely. It was a long, long time. The long kiss that seemed to be suffocating was young and passionate. It seemed to last forever or until the end of time. Li Tianlan's hand that was stroking Wang Yuetong's back subconsciously wanted to lift her sweater and put his hand inside. Wang Yuetong uttered a few meaningless syllables, but her arms around Li Tianlan's neck became tighter and tighter. The phone suddenly rang. The sudden ringtone instantly woke the two of them up. Li Tianlan's body shook. He looked at the caller ID and suddenly felt more embarrassed. "Qin Weibai." At this time, she should have arrived in Billy State, right? Just got off the plane? At this moment, although Li Tianlan knew that Qin Weibai was thousands of miles away, he could not help but feel like he was caught in bed. Without hesitation, he pressed the answer button and said hello. He did not know why he sounded so guilty. Where are you? Qin Weibai's voice was soft and charming, like a spring breeze. At home. Li Tianlan subconsciously glanced at Wang Yuetong, but he saw that the little princess's big eyes were blurred. It seemed that she had not come to her senses yet. She just stared at him. Li Tianlan's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and his tone was a little stuttering. By yourself? I'll ask the old man to accompany you and talk to you. Qin Weibai said softly. Li Tianlan hesitated. He wanted to lie, but when the words came to his mouth, he was ready to tell the truth. Yuetong is also there. On the phone, Qin Weibai suddenly fell into silence. Li Tianlan's palms were full of sweat, but he did not know how to explain. After nearly half a minute, Qin Weibai's soft voice continued to come through the phone. He could not tell what her mood was. I've tidied up our bedroom and changed the sheets. You can use it. Li Tianlan broke into a cold sweat and said subconsciously, No, little Bai, listen to my explanation. On the phone, Qin Weibai chuckled. Fu, it's okay. Her voice was still soft, with indescribable meekness and affection. I've arrived in Billy State. Wait for me, I'll go back right away. Li Tianlan stared blankly at the phone that was hung up. For a moment, his heart was in a mess. Senior brother, Wang Yuetong's face was rosy and charming. The darkness of the living room perfectly covered her face full of lust, but her voice was unusually charming, with a trace of shyness of a girl whose first kiss was taken away. Is it her? Li Tianlan nodded and said softly, I suddenly find myself quite a bastard. Yuetong, I'm a half-hearted scum, right? Wang Yuetong was slightly silent. After a long time, she said softly, I have a biological mother and 2 stepmothers. Li Tianlan, where did you go tonight? Seeing that Li Tianlan did not make a clear statement, Wang Yuetong seemed to be a little resentful and asked in a faint voice. I went out for a walk and found a good dog. Li Tianlan forced himself to calm down. He wanted to call Qin Weibai again, but he also knew that whether she was angry or not, it was very inappropriate to call him now. Do you like dogs? Wang Yuetong tilted her small head slightly. I also have a dog. I've been raising it at second uncle's place these days. I was going to take it to the Sky Academy. Senior brother, can I give it to you? Li Tianlan nodded with a smile. In a very short time, his physical condition was getting better and better. Although this energy was far from enough to heal him, it had temporarily brought him out of danger. The most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai? He looked at Wang Yuetong and thought of the long kiss just now. His heart was in a mess, and he could not figure out what the relationship between him and Wang Yuetong was now. He suppressed his inner thoughts and casually touched his pocket, trying to find a cigarette. However, he inadvertently took out the bulging imperial jade seal in his pocket. Li Tianlan was stunned. He took out the imperial jade seal and put it on the tea table, silent. It was dark in the living room. The milky white imperial jade seal quietly emitted a soft and holy light, which was particularly eye-catching. What is this? Wang Yuetong's eyes were attracted at once, and she asked subconsciously. This is a treasure. Li Tianlan chuckled. He did not intend to tell them about the Lu family. The Lu family was his dog, but this dog was still very useful in the Special Warfare Group for the time being. If he made the Lu family break with the Special Warfare Group now, not to mention whether it was in his interest or not, even Lu Tianjing would not agree. Break with Kunlun City completely? That was also the tragic death of the whole family. There was not much difference whether they died earlier or later. It was the best choice for both sides to let the Lu family hide in the dark. Li Tianlan took a deep breath, looked at the imperial jade seal on the table, and said with a smile, After I study it for a while, I will cut it into a few pieces of jade and give them to you. The one who got the imperial jade seal would get the world. Li Tianlan had always scoffed at such words. But Lu Tianjing said that his brother Lu Tianqing entered the invincible realm with the imperial jade seal in front of him, which was worthy of his focus. The biggest secret of the Lu family could also be said to be Li Tianlan's most unexpected gain tonight. If he hadn't gone crazy tonight and gambled with the Lu family's life with his own, but used other means to slowly kill the Lu family, he might not have been able to get it in the end. The Curtain Intelligence Organization. The Imperial Jade Seal. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes slightly and counted the gains tonight, looking calmer and calmer. For him at this stage, whether the Imperial Jade Seal had that mysterious effect was actually secondary. Most importantly, he got the Curtain Intelligence Organization. He entered Huading alone for less than a month. By chance, fortune and misfortune depended on each other. Now Li Tianlan's physical condition was unprecedentedly bad. But at the same time, he got a small but at least in Huading, a foundation that no one dared to ignore. A foundation that belonged only to him. Ordered by heaven, live long and prosper. Under the soft light of the Imperial Jade Seal, the handwriting on the jade seemed to become clearer and clearer. Li Tianlan sat quietly and looked at the Imperial Jade Seal in front of him. In the darkness, his eyes narrowed slightly, deep and majestic. Chapter 88. In the vague and clear dream, it was still snowing. Kunlun Zhongzhou State. This was a place that people couldn't like, whether in reality or in the dream. Looking from afar, the mountains were continuous, and the world was pure white, holy and unparalleled, like a fairyland. But in fact, in this world of ice and snow, which didn't seem like a human world, it was the most torturous. This was the ancestor of all mountains in Zhongzhou State. The mountains here were high and the clouds were wide, and the air here was thin. The mountains were too high, and the snow was too cold. After staying here for a long time, it seemed that all the warmth and humanity would be covered by the heavy snow one after another. Everyone gradually became pure and became pure lunatics. This was a cold and cruel place. There was no morality, no bottom line, no right and wrong, no good and evil, and no warmth and kindness. Only the cold wind whistled between heaven and earth. Only the snow covered the mountains and fields. The snow was boundless. This was a place that would make people shudder at the thought of it. The sky of Kunlun in the dream was always gloomy and silent, with a kind of desperate black. The day here was not bright, and the night was not pure. In the environment where black and white were mixed with gray, despair spread throughout the mountains. The dream was like a monotonous movie, dull and rigid, recording everything clearly and deeply. The first thunder suddenly sounded. The thunder roared on Qingyun Peak, shocking the world. The pale lightning kept falling from the sky, and the heavy snow all over the mountains and fields was strangely turbulent in the air. The snowflakes were like swords, flying and shuttling. People kept falling from Qingyun Peak, which was thousands of meters high, and fell into the quiet city at the foot of the mountain. More people rushed up one after another, like a tide of people. The vast lightning fell, the white snowflakes drifted, the red blood flew, the black night, the snow-white mountains, and the indifferent people. The battlefield that was separated by layers of time and space rushed into the dream as if it was yesterday. "Who dares to fight with me?" A man's voice was as clear as thunder, echoing between heaven and earth, and the mountains roared. "Who is qualified to fight with me?" The crowd dissipated. Corpses piled up like a mountain. Blood flowed like a river. A slender figure bathed in blood stood at the peak of the mountain in high spirits. Lightning was still falling from the sky, and the snowflakes were no longer shuttling back and forth. All of them were floating around him. The sword will and killing intent swept through the sky. Standing in the bloody battlefield, he seemed to be connected with heaven and earth, becoming the only thing in the world. "When I move, the mountains and rivers topple over. If I die, then the heavens and earth will collapse." Stepping on Kunlun, supreme. Boom! A murderous weapon was rumbling. A beam of black light with a strong chi wave instantly enveloped the entire Qingyun Peak. It tore apart the lightning, the snowflakes, and everything else. Sword radiance shot up into the sky from the black light, dazzling like a rainbow. A few figures stood indifferently in the air, not saying a word. The black light dissipated. The blood-red figure was still standing on the peak of the mountain, smiling brightly. "I have a sword, and I am willing to accompany you on your journey." He gently raised the sword in his hand. The lightning dissipated. The snowflakes vanished. There was only one sword in the world. The space distorted slightly. A figure wrapped in black rushed to the peak of the mountain at full speed. He and the sword became one. The black figure's murderous intent soared to the sky. Under the mask, only a pair of starry eyes were cold and indifferent. He turned his head slightly. All of a sudden, the sword energy dissipated, and so did the sword intent. The man in black approached, and so did the long sword. The blade, as cold as snow, pierced his heart directly. The surging sword intent broke out in his body and then came out. Countless blood mists burst out of his body. He stood motionless, looking at the cold eyes in front of him, and smiled gently. "It hurts. Why don't you fight back?" The man in black asked with cold eyes. "You will die, and so will he." He continued to smile, as if nothing had happened. How dare an ordinary man call himself an emperor? Ridiculous. You will end up like this today, and Wang Tianzong will end up like this in the future. A gloomy and indifferent voice sounded in the air, cold and happy. He ignored it and just looked at her eyes quietly, as if he wanted to engrave them in his heart. "I'm sorry." She spoke again in a calm tone. "It's understandable. After all, your surname is Gu." He continued to smile, as if it would never change. "I'm sorry. You don't have to do this. I'm very tired these years, too tired. It's time to rest. I'm sorry. I want to go home. I'm sorry. I really want to see him. I'm sorry." His figure fell to the ground in the wind and snow, and there was no sound. All that was left was her voice echoing in the air. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, ah." A shrill scream suddenly sounded, desolate and desperate. Qin Weibai suddenly opened her eyes and breathed rapidly. The car drove steadily in the city of Brusa. The red lights were green, and the luxurious life was luxurious. It was a scene of prosperity. She wrapped the windbreaker around her body, adapted to the air that was colder than Huiding, and remained silent. "Boss, did you have a nightmare?" Horsewoman looked at Qin Weibai, who had sweat on her delicate forehead, and asked softly. "Water." Qin Weibai took a deep breath and said calmly. Horsewoman immediately took a bottle of water and handed it over. Qin Weibai unscrewed the cap with trembling hands, raised her head, and drank half of the bottle of mineral water in one breath. She took a long breath and said coldly, "Where are we?" "We'll arrive at the Aurora Hotel soon." Flaming Fire, who was driving, replied respectfully. Qin Weibai nodded. The Aurora Hotel was their scheduled rendezvous place, about dozens of kilometers away from the airport. "Has my sister arrived yet?" She put the mineral water aside and continued to ask. Flaming Fire nodded gently and did not speak. Qin Weibai turned her head to look out of the window and whispered, "I don't want to wait anymore." The helicopter roared over the top of the mountain. Before getting off the helicopter, Dongqing Wudi, who was burning with anxiety, saw his father standing on the rooftop of the villa. The marshal of Zhongzhou State was straightforward. He did not wait for the helicopter to land, but directly opened the door and jumped down, landing beside Dongqing Hongguang. The entire rooftop shook slightly. Dongqing Wudi forced himself to calm down and called his father. Dongqing Hongguang turned to look at him and said calmly, "Do you want to go to Huiding?" Dongqing Wudi was stunned and said with a wry smile, "If you hadn't asked someone to stop me in the air, I would have arrived at Huiding by now." "Tanlon, you don't have to go." Dongqing Hongguang interrupted him and said in a tough tone, "It's not appropriate for you to go now." Dongqing Wudi was silent and did not say a word. He knew that what his father said was right, but there were some things that could not be done simply by right or wrong. "I just talked to Boss Qin on the phone," Dongqing Hongguang said. Regardless of whether his son understood what he meant or not, he said again, "You go back to the Border Control Corps immediately. Huiding, don't go there yet. How about I meet him on the way?" Dongqing Wudi hesitated and could not help asking. You're not on the way. Dongqing Hongguang looked into the distance and said coldly, Not to the south, I want you to go to the northeast core. Sky Academy. The higher-ups of the academy held a high-standard welcome banquet in the evening to welcome Tribulation, the deputy governor of Sai City and the deputy director of teaching, to join the star of Yan Huang. All the teachers of the Sky Academy attended the banquet, and the atmosphere was warm. For the arrival of Tribulation, even Gu Yunxia, who was the most frightened in her heart, could only force a smile and welcome her deputy who could not control herself because she was seriously injured. After the banquet, Zhuang Huayang had a secret talk with Tribulation and personally saw him out of the office. In the spacious office, the old headmaster picked up the red confidential phone on the table and skillfully dialed a number. Soon, a deep and gentle voice sounded on the phone, full of magnetism and impressive. Chief, I'm sorry to disturb your rest. Zhuang Huayang said with a smile and a casual tone. No, I'm still reviewing a few documents. Just now, Dongqing Wudi, the killer, came to me and complained, so I was delayed. On the phone, the chief's voice was calm and gentle. How is Li Tianlun? He paused and continued to ask. I don't know the specific situation, but as far as I know, it's not very optimistic. Zhuang Huayang hesitated and told the truth. He wanted to protect Li Tianlun, but he must not affect the chief's judgment. There was silence on the phone. Zhuang Huayang waited for a while and tentatively said, Chief, should we do anything? Let's observe first. The people of Samsara are almost in Billy's state now, right? Let's take it slow. The chief smiled and said calmly. Zhuang Huayang agreed, and there was no change in his expression. Qin Weibai has a good relationship with the eldest daughter of the Dongqing family? The chief suddenly asked in a thoughtful tone. It seems so. I didn't pay much attention. Zhuang Huayang was stunned and said. The chief smiled again, said yes, and hung up the phone. Garden party. Wang Tianzong still stayed in the pavilion, reading the messages one by one. His eyes became colder and colder. Wang Yuetong had been missing for 12 hours. There was no news from the police. There was no news from the military. There was no news from the Sky Academy. His precious daughter seemed to have disappeared into thin air. No one knew if she was alive or dead. Tianzong, shall I go to the Lu family? A middle-aged man in a suit beside Wang Tianzong walked into the pavilion and asked straightforwardly. He was about 50 years old and wore a pair of glasses. He had a calm and dignified air about him. Yu Chuanguang, the general of the Southeast Group and the mayor of Huading. He was the leading figure of the entire Southeast Group in Huading and a strong contender for the top leader of Huading in the future. Yu Chuanguang was tough and meticulous. In the past 5 years, he played a wonderful game with Zhong Yongming, the leader of the Prince Group. As a member of the decision-making committee and the top leader, Zhong Yongming was higher than Yu Chuanguang in both rank and status. But in the past 5 years, Zhong Yongming did not gain any advantage from Yu Chuanguang. Yu Chuanguang had a great influence in all departments in the city. But after the Prince Group conquered Huading, a series of standing committees in Huading were also adjusted. Now the top leaders of Huading had already formed a situation of fragmentation, and Yu Chuanguang's advantage had also been greatly weakened. But even so, he could hold his ground in the confrontation with Zhong Yongming, which showed the political wisdom of the general of the Southeast Group. After Wang Yuetong disappeared, Yu Chuanguang came to the garden party immediately and had issued a series of search orders on the way. Under his direct intervention, almost all the forces in Huading had been dispatched to search for Wang Yuetong, but there was still no news of Wang Yuetong. She had been missing for 12 hours. That was enough time for anything to happen. Yu Chuanguang liked his niece Wang Yuetong very much. As time went by, he, who had always been calm, finally couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and wanted to go to the Lu family. In the whole of Huading, the Lu family's intelligence organization was the largest and most detailed. The curtain had been operating in Huading for decades, and in recent years, it had specialized in intelligence. Unlike other intelligence organizations, the curtain had never expanded. No matter how good the opportunity was, they turned a blind eye to it. They just kept developing inside Huading. After so many years, no one knew how many eyes and ears the curtain had. They could be regarded as the strongest intelligence force. In terms of intelligence network, the Wang family of Beihai's intelligence system was second to none in the entire Zhongzhou state and even the entire Dark World. But if they only focused on Huading, especially Huading 5 years after the Prince Group conquered it, the Lu family's intelligence agency was undoubtedly the most advantageous. The curtain really covered Huading, just like its name. Under this curtain, there was almost no intelligence that they could not get. Now, although the curtain had also received a search task, they were destined not to pay much attention to the disappearance of the people of the Wang family of Beihai. As the mayor, if he went there, at least he could make them more dedicated. No need. I just got the news that the curtain is suddenly looking for Yuetong like crazy. I don't know if Lu Tianjing, the old fox, took the wrong medicine. Wang Xiaoyao came over with his mobile phone and said in a strange tone. He looked at Wang Tianzong, who was motionless, hesitated a little, and said softly, "Brother, don't worry. Taoist Xianxia said that Yuetong is safe this time." Wang Tianzong finally moved and said, "Send someone from Beihai to Hudi. I must see that girl within 24 hours. In the pavilion, the pale Wang Xingxiao's expression changed. His eyes were a little unnatural, and he seemed to want to slip away. "Forget it. Okay." Wang Tianzong shook his head and took out his mobile phone. "Your Majesty, how are you?" As soon as the phone was connected, a nervous and angry loud voice suddenly rang from the phone. "What do you mean, how am I?" Wang Tianzong frowned slightly. Yuetong said that you were seriously injured by a sneak attack in Huading. I'm ready to take people to Huading." The loud voice continued. "You mean Yuetong told you that I was seriously injured?" Wang Tianzong's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. After the accident, in order not to worry the Wang family of Beihai, he had not contacted Beihai. When Beihai heard that he was seriously injured, they would not doubt the words of the wicked girl and directly began to respond. In other words, Wang Yuetong not only did not disappear, but also returned to the Wang family of Beihai and played a trick on other high-level officials. "Yes, Yuetong said that you were attacked by a murderous weapon and the situation was very critical. She asked Madam for the key to the secret warehouse and took a bottle of immortality potion. I also sent impermanence to escort her. Who knew that as soon as she arrived in Huading, Yuetong disappeared. I'm in a mess. I can't get in touch with you, Xiaoyao, and Xingxiao. What's going on?" Wang Tianzong frowned more and more. Couldn't get in touch with him? There was no doubt that someone had done something to his mobile phone. Presumably, at this time, the news of his so-called serious injury was still confidential. Even if Beihai wanted to get in touch with him, they would not contact others. They would only contact people who could be 100% trusted. In this way, things suddenly became a big mistake. Wang Tianzong felt relaxed and a little depressed. He was relaxed because his precious daughter was fine. He was depressed because she took a bottle of immortality potion. Immortality potion had been the most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai for hundreds of years. Even if she could only get the first version of immortality potion, it was enough to cause a bloody storm in the Dark World. A bottle of immortality potion meant nearly 20 years of vitality. For a dying old man, it meant 20 years of extra life. There were probably countless patriarchs of wealthy families all over the world who were willing to pay any price for a bottle of this kind of thing. But for hundreds of years, except for a small amount for its own use, the Wang family of Beihai had kept the rest strictly and never leaked any of it. The first generation of immortality potion, the second generation of immortality potion, youth, longevity lock, this whole series was called the immortality series in the Wang family of Beihai. Every potion could be said to be the foundation of the Wang family of Beihai, especially the immortality potion. Even if it was the first generation of immortality potion, the Wang family of Beihai had less than 10 stocks, but now one was stolen by Wang Yuetong. At this moment, Wang Tianzong felt as if a piece of his heart had been torn off, and he was almost mad with anger. Yuetong left for less than an hour. Madam couldn't sit still and took people to Huading. We are the second group, Your Majesty, how are you? The loud voice continued to ring on the phone. Wang Tianzong gritted his teeth fiercely and said, I was not attacked at all. That wicked girl deceived you all. He pressed the phone hard, turned to look directly at Wang Xingxiao and asked, What happened? This drama was really wonderful. Wang Tianzong was seriously injured and missing, and the whole Huading was in turmoil. Now the truth was out. No matter how deep Wang Tianzong was, he was angry at this time. Yuetong begged me to. I didn't know she was so bold. Wang Xingxiao smiled bitterly. It was a pain in the ass. She even dared to steal the immortality potion. He thought his sister was crazy. So all this was directed and acted by you and your sister? Wang Tianzong said expressionlessly, What happened to your serious injury? I hurt myself. Wang Shengxiao honestly said, I have a ghost eye bomb here, which was taken away by Yuetong. About an hour after she left, I detonated the bomb, and then this is what you see. Wang Tianzong stretched out his hand and pointed at his son fiercely, speechless for a while. Beihai couldn't get in touch with him, but he could get through to Beihai. That was to say, if he had called a few hours earlier, this would not have happened at all. It was obvious that his precious daughter had thoroughly studied his character. That immortality potion. Undoubtedly, it was given to that boy. The more Wang Tianzong thought about it, the angrier he became. There was even a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Of course, this killing intent was not aimed at Wang Yuetong, but the descendant of the Li family who drank the immortality potion. The phone rang suddenly. Wang Tianzong picked up the phone and said hello with a poker face. No one knew what was said on the other end of the phone. The Sword Emperor of Zhongzhou State, who had never been so excited even when he lost the immortality potion, suddenly shook his body, and his attention was completely diverted. He said he got it, hung up the phone, and was silent for a long time. Almost at the same time, all the top wealthy families and countries in the world received the news one after another. In the past 2 decades, every 5 years, a major event that could shake the whole world would happen in the Dark World. In the past few years, it almost all happened in Zhongzhou State. For example, Li Guangtu's treason 20 years ago. For example, Sidu Zongyue killed Lu Tianqing 10 years ago. Now another 5 years were coming. Everyone subconsciously thought that even if it happened, it would also happen in Zhongzhou State. Even some people with a keen sense of smell had locked their eyes on Huading. Today, it finally happened, but it had nothing to do with Zhongzhou State. 2 hours ago, Bruxelles, the capital of Billy State. The Samsara Palace launched a large-scale attack on the headquarters of Night Spirit, one of the superpowers in the Dark World. The 12 super masters of the Samsara Palace arrived together. Night Spirit, an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, died in battle. And Yun, an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, Night Spirit, died in battle. Night Spirit, an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, died in battle. Horsewoman, one of the 12 super masters of the Samsara Palace, was seriously injured, as was military counselor. Since the establishment of the Samsara Palace, it was the second time that the mysterious palace master of the Samsara Palace had shown up, and it was the first time that he had fought with all his might. Tian Exin, an invincible realm expert from the Night Spirit organization who ranked 10th on the divine list in the Dark World, fought with the murderous weapon Blue Sky Underworld. When the murderous weapon roared, the master of Samsara Palace pulled out her sword directly. One strike. Only one sword. It was a sword light that illuminated the entire city, as if it could split heaven and earth apart. After one sword stroke, Blue Sky Underworld, one of the 12 murderous weapons in the Dark World, changed owners. The heavenly spirit fell. 15 years ago, Zhongzhou Sword Emperor Wang Tianzong killed Tianling with the murderous weapon Human Emperor. 15 years later, the master of Samsara Palace killed Tian Exin, who was holding the murderous weapon, Blue Sky Underworld, in seconds. Invincible kills invincible. The Night Spirit organization was destroyed. With Bruxelles as the center, the Dark World suddenly surged like a torrent, spreading wildly throughout the Dark World. This was the sad song of the Night Spirit, and also the glory of Samsara. In recent decades, This was the first superpower in the dark world to be completely destroyed. With the disappearance of the night spirit, the whole dark world was destined to set off a rare storm in recent years. And according to reliable sources at this moment, the Samsara had begun to leave Bruxelles and went straight to the airport, including the master of Samsara Palace who was holding the murderous weapon Blue Sky Underworld. From the beginning to the end of the battle, they didn't even stop for a moment. The murderous weapon Blue Sky Underworld. In the garden party, Wang Tianzong frowned. Among the 12 murderous weapons, Blue Sky Underworld ranked third, higher than the setting sun and the legend of Qin. This authoritative ranking was enough to show the power of this murderous weapon. He looked down at the pond under his feet and muttered to himself, "Only one strike?" The phone in his hand vibrated again. Wang Tianzong looked down at the phone, and a text message was displayed directly on the screen. "Are you safe traveling to Beihai?" Chapter 89. When the deep and distant bell rang in the living room, Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong opened their eyes almost at the same time. "Morning." Li Tianlan greeted her and seemed a little embarrassed. "Morning." Wang Yuetong chuckled. Her beautiful red and swollen eyes seemed to have faded, and her eyes were full of vigor. Her soft eyes looked very charming. She blinked and whispered, "Senior brother, what do you think?" "Very good." Li Tianlan tilted his head awkwardly and said. After receiving Qin Weibai's call, Li Tianlan forcibly restrained his emotions mixed with desire and feelings. He spent a night alone with Wang Yuetong. Although nothing excessive happened, it didn't mean that what happened before the phone call didn't exist. Last night, the light in the living room was not turned on, so Li Tianlan didn't feel anything. But now, as the sun rose, he looked at Wang Yuetong's rosy and beautiful mouth again and found it a little red and swollen. Instead of being ugly, it looked a little more lovely than usual. Li Tianlan subconsciously recalled Wang Yuetong's sweetness and gentleness, and the more he thought about it, the more fascinated he became. Perhaps a man's so-called bottom line was so fragile. No matter how firm he was in his rejection before, once he took the first step, everything after that would seem to be logical and logical. Even his sense of guilt would become smaller and smaller. This was probably what it meant by getting out of hand. Li Tianlan shook his head hard and shook the charming thoughts out of his mind. He got up and walked off the sofa. He carefully felt his body, and his face became calmer and calmer. Before the sword at the Sky Academy, his body was like a deep well filled with water. After that, all his essence, qi, spirit, vitality, and potential completely poured out like water from the well. Tribulation barely suppressed the sword, which was equivalent to leaving some water for the well. But the foundation at the bottom of the well had been completely damaged, and the small amount of water was still leaking out little by little. His strength was getting stronger and stronger, and his body was getting weaker and weaker. Almost every minute and every second, he was rapidly approaching death. Li Tianlan didn't know what the so-called most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai was, but now he had completely understood its nature-defying effect. As soon as the bottle of purple liquid entered his abdomen, endless vitality began to replenish his completely dry body. Now his body was still like a deep well that was almost dry, but the bottom of the well that had been completely destroyed condensed again and was even more solid than before. Right now, his body's condition was still not too good. At the very least, the state of a thunderclap kick and a chi-controlling kick still showed that his life force could not suppress the constantly expanding power. However, under the consolidation of the mysterious potion, his life force was no longer flowing away. In other words, under normal circumstances, Li Tianlan was now out of danger. Although he still had no hope of entering the invincible realm, he didn't have to be completely desperate. If he had a chance to fill the deep well in his body with water again in the future, as more vitality came in and suppressed his strength, he would be healed. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and stretched himself. He turned to look at Wang Yuetong and said softly, "Thank you." Wang Yuetong, who had accompanied Li Tianlan to meditate on the sofa all night, sat on the sofa with her legs together, hugged her knees, and looked at him. Her beautiful eyes were full of affection. Li Tianlan walked to the French windows of the villa and looked out quietly. 8 o'clock in the morning. Rain was falling from the gloomy sky, and the air was slightly cold. In front of the villa, the potholes caused by Dongqing Wudi's sword had not been repaired, and there were already some large and small puddles in the yard. His sight was full of greenery. The green lawn and the straight trunks of the sycamore were fresh and clean under the washing of the rain. Li Tianlan stood quietly in front of the window, his mind clearer than ever. He had almost exhausted all of his vitality and potential with this sword, but he had obtained the Imperial Jade Seal and the Curtain Intelligence Department, which symbolized great luck. He was out of danger, but there was no hope of being invincible for the time being. This day was full of ups and downs, gains and losses. It was too wonderful. Before there was a definite way to help him recover from his injury, he didn't think he had gained anything, but at least he wouldn't lose too much. The faint sound of footsteps echoed in the dark living room. Wang Yuetong came to the window and held Li Tianlan tightly from behind. Her delicate little face was pressed against his back, and she silently listened to the rain outside the window. She whispered softly, "I'm sleepy." Li Tianlan had ups and downs yesterday, and Wang Yuetong's heart was also full of ups and downs. She was afraid that she had never been so rich in her life. Beihai province was far to the north of the northeast. It was a journey of 7,000 or 8,000 kilometers from Huading and back in one day. She not only had to deceive the high-level officials of the Wang family of Beihai, but also had to avoid the sight of the Wang family of Beihai in Huading. All of this was for a man who called her a bitch, who could know the grievances and resentment in her heart. After a night of meditation, Wang Yuetong finally couldn't bear it anymore. She held the man in front of her, who made her somewhat angry, somewhat and somewhat at ease. Her eyelids suddenly began to fight. "Go and have a rest. There are guest rooms upstairs." Li Tianlan turned around and touched Wang Yuetong's hair. He didn't know how to deal with the relationship with Wang Yuetong now, but he couldn't treat her coldly in any way. Now that things had come to this, he could only let nature take its course. Speaking of upstairs, he suddenly remembered several assassins belonging to the curtain. The 9 elites had all turned into a pile of black ash, but the blood on the wall was still there. Qin Weibai was not there, so he had to clean up these chores. A trace of shyness quietly climbed up Wang Yuetong's face. She raised her head and quickly glanced at Li Tianlan with her watery eyes. She seemed to be a little hesitant. "What's wrong?" Li Tianlan asked directly. Wang Yuetong bit her red and moist lower lip, which had become a little numb because of red and swollen. After hesitating for a while, she whispered like a mosquito, "Didn't she say that we can use your bedroom?" She stood in front of Li Tianlan with her tall and slender body and lowered her head. For a moment, even her tender white neck turned red. "You can use it too." Li Tianlan only felt a bang in his head, and then his mind went blank. No one knew how tempting and fatal this implicit and wild invitation was. Especially at this stage in the morning, when the noble and pure little princess trembled and said that even she could be used by him, Li Tianlan's eyes almost turned red in an instant. Li Tianlan gasped a few times, swallowed, and said in a hoarse voice, "Let's go. I'll take you to the guest room first." Wang Yuetong, who had summoned up the courage to invite Li Tianlan to enjoy herself in the master bedroom, was waiting for Li Tianlan's answer or action nervously and fearfully. Hearing his words, her heart suddenly became cold again. "Senior brother, you still don't want me, do you?" Wang Yuetong asked softly, "Am I being cheap again? Am I particularly shameless in your eyes?" Li Tianlan felt a sharp pain in his heart, and for a moment he did not know how to explain. Some words were like knives. Perhaps they weren't malicious, but they were absolutely sharp. They were sharp enough to cut a pure and exquisite young girl's heart into pieces, and then turn it into a knot in her heart, a scar that was so bloody that it couldn't be healed. Li Tianlan did not know if he owed Wang Yuetong one or many apologies. Looking at her pretty face that had become a little pale again, he reached out to hold Wang Yuetong's shoulder and let her raise her head to look at him. "You're not a bitch. No one will regard a girl who is willing to die with him, and even willing to give up her dignity and pride to become humble as a bitch, do you know?" Li Tianlan looked into Wang Yuetong's eyes seriously and said solemnly. Wang Yuetong's eyes lit up, and her face became ruddy again. This time, it was not because of shyness, but because of excitement. I've said that I'm actually a very selfish person. The reason why I want to be even with you is that I know that no matter what happens in the future, it's unlikely that I will get back together with the Wang family of Beihai. If I become enemies with the Wang family of Beihai in the future, what should I do? What should you do? Li Tianlan laughed at himself and said, there are some things that I don't want to bear, and you may not have the courage to bear them. There will be a way. Wang Yuetong muttered to herself, and her tone became softer and softer. There must be a way. Li Tianlan took a deep look at her and said softly, go to rest first and we'll talk about it when you wake up. I'm waiting for sixth sister to come over and ask her to bring me something. I'll inform her when you're meditating. Wang Yuetong shook her head, and her legs moved a little unnaturally. She had given her first kiss last night. One had no experience, and the other had little experience, but the two novices kissed passionately. It was not until a long time after they separated that Wang Yuetong found that her underwear had been completely soaked and sticky, and even her jeans had some wet marks. Girls loved cleanliness, so she managed to endure it all night. Before dawn, she couldn't help but call the enchantress. You're not going home? Li Tianlan was stunned for a moment, and then he looked at Wang Yuetong and asked. I don't dare to go back and I can't go back. Wang Yuetong shook her head and said pitifully, Senior brother, I'll stay with you during this period. Li Tianlan was silent for a long time, and then he nodded slightly. He knew why Wang Yuetong couldn't go back. The bottle of potion he drank last night was the most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai. What did the most precious treasure of a top rich and powerful family mean? Li Tianlan didn't know the specific value of the most precious treasure, but it could make his body recover to this extent overnight. It was not an exaggeration to describe its value in any way. After all, life was the most precious thing above everything else. Li Tianlan didn't know how long the potion last night could bring a person's life, but even if it was only for a short period of time, the value of the potion was immeasurable. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes, and his eyes were firm. At present, he couldn't come up with anything that could be compared with the most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai. He didn't want to say anything crazy, but he had made up his mind that this kind of thing would eventually be returned. He gently held Wang Yuetong in his arms, holding her slender and elastic waist, and remained silent. The sound of a car horn could be heard outside the villa. Through the clean and bright floor-to-ceiling windows, a blue Porsche parked at the door in the rain outside the villa. The door opened, and the enchantress, wearing a thin black windbreaker and holding a box, got out of the car. She opened the front compartment of the car and took out another suitcase. In Li Tianlan's sight, she held the box in one hand and pulled the suitcase with the other, walking directly to the front door of the villa. The constantly falling rain evaporated before it approached. The enchantress walked briskly, graceful, mature and enchanting. Li Tianlan let go of Wang Yuetong and let her trot to open the door. The enchantress handed the suitcase in her hand to Wang Yuetong and walked into the villa with the box in her hand. The box vibrated slightly in her hand, and it seemed to contain a living thing. Li Tianlan glanced at the box, nodded slightly, and said nothing. The relationship between the two seemed to be a little awkward. At the very least, he called her sixth sister. At least, he couldn't call her sixth sister now. Did you take the immortality potion? The enchantress looked at Li Tianlan with complicated eyes. Li Tianlan nodded silently and said nothing. At this time, it was inappropriate to say anything. Yuetong, the enchantress spoke softly and shook her head. His Majesty is very angry. Yuetong is simply crazy. Do you know how much she has sacrificed for you? There are about 2 or 3 portions of the potion you took in Zhengzhou State, 1 or 2 portions in Germany, and the rest are in the Wang family of Beihai, but there are less than 10 portions. For hundreds of years, several invincible realm experts of the Wang family of Beihai would rather die than waste a bottle. Even His Majesty has not been so extravagant. Yuetong stole it and gave it to you. His Majesty was so angry that he almost broke off the father-daughter relationship with her. Li Tianlan subconsciously glanced at Wang Yuetong. Although he had tried to overestimate the preciousness of the most precious treasure of the Wang family of Beihai, listening to the enchantress's words, he still felt that he had underestimated it. The enchantress hesitated and continued, "Of course, if you are willing to join the Wang family of Beihai." Before she could finish her words, Li Tianlan's cell phone suddenly rang. Li Tianlan glanced at her, nodded, and walked aside to take out his cell phone. Behind him, the enchantress put the box on the tea table, looked at Wang Yuetong and whispered, "Don't go back for the time being. His Majesty is angry, and Madame dares not to plead for you." Li Tianlan took a deep breath and looked at the caller ID. It was a strange number. He pressed the answer button and said hello. "Young Master Li, this is Lu Xiyuan." On the phone, a dry and dull voice sounded. Li Tianlan could hear how reluctant and unreconciled the other party was just from his voice. Li Tianlan was expressionless and said coldly, "Say it." The imperial jade seal was in his hands. No matter how much the Lu family hated him, they could only be obedient dogs now. On the phone, Lu Xiyuan took a deep breath with great humiliation and said in a low voice, "We just got the news that last night, the Samsara Palace launched a large-scale attack on the Night Spirit Organization in Billi State. The Night Spirit Organization was destroyed, and the Blue Sky Underworld, one of the 12 murderous weapons, has fallen into the hands of the master of Samsara Palace." Li Tianlan's heart suddenly shook. "What about the casualties of the Samsara Palace?" "I'm not sure yet." Lu Xiyuan said calmly, "Zhongzhou State has made a response. He Ping, one of the standing committee members of Huading and the director of the Ministry of Politics and Law, has been suspended. Xiuqing failed to become an executive member and is said to be taking over He Ping's position. Tan Qinghua is said to be transferred out of the Eastern Theater of Operations. Dongcheng Qiuqi, the mayor of Wudong New Area, is said to be the secretary. Bai Qingqian was transferred to Guangzhou. It is said that she is also the secretary." Lu Xiuwei told them the information he had obtained. The people and things he mentioned were more or less related to Li Tianlan. "Bai Qingqian?" Li Tianlan frowned and asked. "General Dongcheng's wife, Miss Bai. Guangzhou has always been considered the territory of the academic faction." Lu Xiuwei explained. "Oh," Li Tianlan said and hung up. Samsara had destroyed Night Spirit and obtained the murderous weapon. He Ping and Tan Qinghua's suspension and transfer were undoubtedly the goodwill that Zhongzhou State had shown to Samsara. As for the rest, perhaps it was the cooperation between the academics and the Dongcheng clan. He held the phone and subconsciously dialed Qin Weibai's number. However, he found that the other party's phone was turned off. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and walked back to the living room absent-mindedly. He was getting more and more worried. In the living room, Wang Yuetong was holding a golden puppy and talking to the enchantress. Seeing Li Tianlan coming over, she got up gently and said with a smile, "Senior brother, sixth sister brought my dog here. I'll give it to you. How about we take it to the Sky Academy?" Li Tianlan nodded with a smile and took the puppy in his arms. "It's very cute." "Well, it's called Baby. It's only 3 months old." Chapter 90. As the youngest provincial administrative district in Zhongzhou State, Beihai Province, the land that once belonged to Snow Country and East Island, covered nearly 160,000 square kilometers. It was close to Zhongzhou State, sandwiched between Snow Country and East Island, like a dazzling pearl in the northeastern sea area of Zhongzhou State. Since the return hundreds of years ago, Beihai Province had been a major political province, economic province, and resource-rich province in Zhongzhou State. Today, it might not be the most developed province in Zhongzhou State, but Beihai Province, whose economic strength had always been in the front line of Zhongzhou State, was definitely the most beautiful place in the whole Zhongzhou State. There were a total of 11 cities in the North Sea Province. Among them, there were 2 sub-provincial cities and 9 prefecture-level cities. Close to 20 million people lived and worked in peace and contentment here. Moreover, as time passed, the population of each city in the North Sea Province would increase every year. With such an intuitive indicator, even a blind person could see that this young province's development potential had not yet reached its limit. This was the most special province in Zhongzhou State. There was an army and a system that belonged only to Beihai Province. For hundreds of years, countless senior officials and generals of Beihai Province went out from here, but few cadres from outside came in. This was autonomy in the truest sense of the word. It was unprecedented, and it might not be repeated in the future. Beihai Province belonged to Zhongzhou State. This was the issue that everyone, including the senior officials of Beihai Province, emphasized. But in the hearts of Beihai people, Beihai Province only belonged to Holy Mountain and the wealthy family on Holy Mountain. The provincial capital of Beihai Province was Xianxia. The mountain not far from Xianxia City was the Holy Mountain in the hearts of Beihai people. It was the place that dominated the entire Beihai Province, the headquarters of the Wang family of Beihai. Beihai Province and Zhongzhou State had laws that were generally similar but not exactly the same. The appointment of the provincial senior officials, the unimpeded policy in the province, the appointment of military generals, everything in Beihai Province was recommended to Zhongzhou State after the decision of the Wang family of Beihai. It was no exaggeration to say that any brick picked up on this 160,000 square kilometers of land was surnamed Wang. In Beihai Province, the entire Holy Mountain was the most mysterious and majestic place. It was the forbidden area of Beihai Province and could be called the Supreme One. Sacred Mountain was just what the common people in Beihai called it. The official name here was Beihai Mount Emperor Bing, which was located in the north of Beihai Province. Everything in the province could be seen clearly under the close observation of this majestic forbidden land, even in the slightest. 12 o'clock at noon. When the sky was the best, Wang Tianzong, the current patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai, appeared at the foot of Mount Dibing. He looked at the clear sky and waited quietly. Wang Xianxiao stood quietly beside Wang Tianzong. His face was calm, and there was no impatience in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of a smile. Time passed slowly as they waited. The sunlight grew warmer. Wang Xianxiao, who was motionless, finally looked down at his watch and said softly, "Dad, it's time." Wang Tianzong nodded and said calmly, "Almost." Wang Xianxiao grinned. Beside their dignified and silent father, he and Wang Yuetong had always been the most open-minded. They were not afraid of saying the wrong thing. Basically, they said what they thought. "Dad, can we keep him in Mount Dibing this time? Our ancestors in the past," Wang Tianzong's eyes flickered and he shook his head slightly. After one night, the anger of losing the immortality potion seemed to have been completely suppressed by him. His tone became calm again. He has made up his mind to ignore the affairs of the world. This time he is just a guest. Let's not talk about anything else. He just wants to annoy us. Wang Xianxiao nodded and seemed to be a little regretful. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. "What do you want to say?" Wang Tianzong glanced at his son. Looking at his pale face, he felt helpless and thought of his precious daughter. That girl was really spoiled. She was spoiled by him, her mother, Wang Xianxiao, and the whole Wang family of Beihai almost spoiled her, so that she easily made a big trouble this time. In order to create the illusion that she was missing, Wang Xianxiao seriously injured himself. He was gratified that the brother and sister had such a good relationship, but he was more angry after losing the immortality potion. "Dad, you're and his strength. Of course it's me." Wang Tianzong chuckled and interrupted Wang Xingxiao's words. "That guy has strength, but he is too lazy. It seems that the general trend of the world has nothing to do with him. He has no combat experience. No matter how strong he is, he can't beat me." "Oh," Wang Xianxiao said disappointedly. "I wanted to pester him to teach me. Since he is so weak, then forget it." "Nonsense." Wang Tianzong scolded with a smile and shook his head slightly. "If he is really willing to teach you," he paused and shook his head. "Forget it. It's probably impossible." Wang Xianxiao suddenly knew that his father's words were insincere. In other words, he was bragging. The corner of his mouth twitched. He held back his laughter and slowly raised his head to look at the mountain road. A small but majestic motorcade slowly appeared in sight. Two Mercedes-Benzes surrounded an elongated black Rolls-Royce slowly approached and finally stopped in front of Wang Tianzong. The driver got out of the car and opened the door. A middle-aged man who looked about the same age as Wang Tianzong got out of the car with a smile. He walked a few steps quickly and said, "Tianzong, why are you so polite?" The middle-aged man was dressed in soft and comfortable casual clothes and sneakers. He was pulling a suitcase with an unknown brand, looking casual and unrestrained. Handsome and unrestrained. This was Wang Xianxiao's first impression when he saw him. The last time he saw this uncle, he was a teenager who had just entered the qi-controlling realm. His impression of the past had been a little vague. The only thing he remembered was that this uncle, who lived in seclusion in Switzerland, had a very good temper and was very handsome. 7 or 8 years had passed. Now that he saw him again, Wang Xianxiao's vague memories suddenly became clear, and even the image completely overlapped. After 7 or 8 years, he seemed to have not changed at all. His face was still handsome and strong, and his smile was free and easy. The only change was that he seemed to be more unrestrained than when they met last time. It was a kind of leisure and unrestrained from his bones, as if everything in the world was fleeting in front of him, leaving no trace. Wang Xianxiao glanced at his father, then at this uncle, and subconsciously made a comparison in his mind. His father was extremely calm. He just stood quietly, looking ordinary, but when looked closely, he was like the sea between heaven and earth, with a kind of magnificent and vast momentum. The uncle in front of him was leisurely and free, and his every move showed a real sense of nature. He really did whatever he wanted, as if everything he did was a normal thing. Wang Xianxiao smiled modestly, but his eyes were thoughtful. According to his second uncle, if this uncle in front of him could also be regarded as a person in the dark world, after Li Guangtu's treason, he should be the only person who could compete with his father. He shook his head subconsciously. Was this the real man who didn't show his face? I haven't seen you for many years. It's etiquette for me to come down the mountain to pick you up. I can't let my friend pick on me, can I? Wang Tianzong took a step forward and shook hands with the middle-aged man. Watching the Rolls-Royce behind him leave directly, he frowned slightly and joked, "Fengning, didn't you say you came with Chuxue? Where is she? Why, are you afraid that I, as her uncle, will force her to be my daughter-in-law?" That girl, the handsome man named Fengting shook his head and said, "Don't worry about her. I'm afraid she will come here by herself later. She said she had never been to Beihai University and wanted to walk around. Just let her be. Anyway, she knows the way." Wang Tianzong nodded and said with a smile, "Why do you suddenly think of Beihai?" Fengting shook his head and said helplessly, "I was in Zhongyun province. 2 days ago, I met the old faker at Luojing airport. He said I should come to Beihai. He was mysterious, so I didn't take it seriously. But Chuxue took it seriously and pestered me to come here. Didn't she go to Shenzhou to look for opportunities as soon as she got off the plane? That old monk is kind and should not have any bad intentions. I'm just an idle person, so I let it go." Wang Tianzong nodded casually and didn't think much about it. He said flatly, "Xianxiao, don't you know your uncle Fengting?" Wang Xianxiao was still thinking about who was stronger between his father and Uncle Fengting. When he heard his father's words, he suddenly came to his senses and said with a respectful and modest smile, "Uncle Feng, long time no see." "He's absent-minded." Wang Tianzong frowned slightly and said with a smile, "This boy just asked me who was stronger and who was weaker. I guess he was distracted when he saw you." Fengting laughed heartily. From his laughter, Wang Xianxiao couldn't hear any competitiveness. There was only a pure sense of freedom and carefreeness. "I can't beat your father. He slashes anyone he sees. I don't fight. No one has provoked me these years. I don't even know how to hold a sword. I can't beat him." He waved his hand and said with an indifferent smile. Wang Xianxiao smiled bitterly and coughed. He didn't know what to say. "What's wrong with you? You're badly injured." Fengting glanced at Wang Xianxiao and seemed a little surprised. Wang Tianzong's face darkened. He snorted and said, "Ignore him. He only knows how to make trouble all day. Fengting, let's go." Fengting nodded with a smile. He pulled the suitcase and walked beside Wang Tianzong. They went up the mountain together. For many years, you and I haven't contacted each other. I thought you were still blaming me for what happened in the past. If it weren't for that old faker, you wouldn't have come to Beihai, would you? Wang Tianzong walked on the road in the mountains and said with emotion. What happened in the past? Feng Ting thought for a while, shook his head and said nothing. Wang Tianzong narrowed his eyes slightly and sighed softly. Just by looking at his old friend's attitude, he already knew that he still had a grudge about what happened in the past. Even if I rank first on the divine list, I can't do whatever I want. I'm the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai first, and then Wang Tianzong. Wang Tianzong said softly. Looking at Feng Ting, who was still silent, he laughed at himself and said, Forget it. You just arrived. Let's not talk about this. I'll arrange a place for you to rest first. No hurry. Feng Ting shook his head and said with a smile, Let's go to the stage of formidable person first. The stage of formidable person. If Mount Dibing was the forbidden area of the entire Beihai province, then the stage of formidable person at the highest point of Mount Dibing was the forbidden area of the entire Mount Dibing. In addition to Wang Tianzong, there were no more than 5 people in the entire Wang family of Beihai who could enter the stage of formidable person at any time. Feng Ting was also one of them, or even the only one. Wang Tianzong nodded silently. When he was about to speak, he suddenly looked up at the top of the mountain. Feng Ting raised his head almost at the same time and slightly narrowed his eyes. On Mount Dibing, the rolling thunder roared, and the wind and clouds surged in the whole sky. The fighting intent and killing intent rose at the same time. A kind of momentum that seemed to go straight to the 9th heaven and into the clouds instantly filled the entire top of the mountain, with extreme fierceness and sharpness. There was sword intent scattered all over the top of the mountain, layer upon layer. A clear female voice sounded and echoed in the whole Mount Dibing. The sound lingered endlessly, like a phoenix dancing in the 9th heaven. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.